Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Apostate, and the purpose of this live stream is to go over some of the responses that I have received to my latest video and to clarify some things because I'm going to be honest, I wasn't expecting this video to pick up. I was just trying to share my thoughts about a couple of things that I thought about Apostate Prophet and David Wood. And I did not expect this amount of people to notice and respond in this way. And I'm going to elaborate on that in a bit. And I may have said a thing or two that I could have worded better. And this is part of why I want to clarify what I mean. Not really to take it back, but to put some words to it and explain how I could have said it better. And I'm open to changing my mind. And I don't know if we're gonna have enough time today to take some questions from the comments. I'll try, but this is how I'm structuring the live stream. So I'll start by giving a bit of an introduction. I want to say a few things on my mind before we begin, and then that should help clear up a little bit. But it'll also clear up my opinions in that video as I go through a bunch of comments that I have screenshot, as a response to that video, and they're not ordered in. I mean, part of them are in chronological order, part of them are not, and they're not in an order of relevance or importance. So I urge you to watch everything if you can, just so you don't miss out on a part or another. And yeah, some comments were supportive as well, but they were drowned by the other comments, and some comments are gone. And some disagree, while being supportive, and some disagree while being civil. I'm going to address a lot of the ones that I found noteworthy, and I may have missed a few here and there. So here's what I have to say. First of all, my intention behind that video, I naively thought that it was going to be similar to all the other videos in reception, meaning that, I'm used to my channel being small and I just get an audience that's sometimes subscribers, sometimes not. And I'm just sharing my thoughts with the audience. This wasn't targeted in any way to be like, this is gonna, get them all. I was expecting some people to tune in who aren't from my audience usually, because those are the people who would be drawn to this kind of title, which I admit is clickbait, but those are the people who would have um, like a misunderstanding about what I think of Apostate Prophet and what I think of David Wood, which I'm gonna be honest, David Wood, I don't think of him that often because I'm not too familiar with his content. And some people were upset at me talking about him when I'm not too familiar with his content. However, I think there is a valid point there, and I thought I made that clear in my video. Part of why I'm talking about David Wood is my perception of him as an ex-Muslim, and as a recent ex-Muslim, how his not just his image, but some of his videos, how they affected me. So it's not an assessment of all of his work and all of his videos, and I made that clear. It's not an assessment of the truthfulness of it. And he may be, I said, he may be a nice guy to ex-Muslims. He might be an ally, but it does matter that this is how it was received by me. And it does matter that this is how it's going to be received by other people as well who don't see that opinion voiced. And it will continue to happen. And it's not just positive. His influence, I don't know. I can't assess if it's an overall positive or negative. That would depend on how you assess, the positives of it. Like, for example, is taking down Islam at any cost, is that a positive? Is his goal, that's why our goals differ. For example, I focus more on sharing my thoughts, but also this is important for ex-Muslims. I care less about this whole dismantling Islam and reducing the number of Muslims in the world. That's not how I operate. So that's why our goals are different. And it's not a commentary on me saying he should not be talking about this at all. I am talking about the very real effect that it has on people like myself and people who are in my shoes today and people who couldn't get past it and so on. So there's a lot of misunderstanding there. And I have clarified myself, but I'll do it more because I'm not perfect. I could have phrased a few things better. Uh, I do see Apostate Prophet. This is interesting. Let me highlight that for a second. Hey, Apostate Prophet, welcome. He's saying, the hell? I had the stream open in a tab in the background somewhere while working. Suddenly you start talking. I'm so confused. It's like something supernatural. God is beaming my thoughts into your head, so I am the next apostle, I suppose. And this is another point here. I'm pretty sure people didn't think that I was demonizing Apostle Prophet in any of this, or that I dislike him. But if that's not clear, like, we're on good terms, and he understands that this is not me, exposing him. This is just the funny title. Um, and you could take a joke. It's okay, Aladdin. We are with you. AP sucks. No idea why anyone likes that creep. You know what? This is a Pasta Prophet. Okay, it's not a fake account. That would have sucked if it was a fake account and I highlight that. Yeah, so that's a good point. And what else? So there are accusations that I did this for it somehow because I'm jealous of them. I can tell you absolutely I'm not jealous of David Wood. Again, we operate in very different domains, and I'm not jealous of AP. I mean, he did achieve a lot of success and he helped a lot of people, but why would that make me jealous? I'm glad that he did his work, and I'm not jealous because I wouldn't have been able to do the same thing. And I'm glad I have this opportunity in a new beginning, if that makes sense. Um, yeah, and there's a lot of recurring sentiments from a certain type of audience that I don't like on my channel, and I've pinpointed before, and I've seen it flooding in, because of this video, and I will talk about why I find it problematic. And I think that David Wood might not explicitly condone it, but some of his content kind of fuels it without addressing the negatives. And I recognize that in my own work as well. I try to be extra careful not to demonize Muslims, and I put disclaimers whenever I can. And it hits closer to home for me than it would for David Wood, even if he's doing his best to be fair, because um, he can't sympathize or empathize the same way. Um, and there's some stuff I heard about. Well, I watched his testimony, which I'm going to talk about at the end. I just gave it a quick look today because someone said you have to watch it. It clarifies his background. Fair enough. Um, but yeah, given his testimony, I don't know if he's able to empathize with ex-Muslims. I don't know. This is not a statement that he's not. I'm just saying it's very unclear to me. Um, and this is not about me trying to convince you that I'm right, or my opinion about either of those people are right, or that I'm judging them as bad people or anything. I'm, again, retelling my thoughts. And you can disagree with me. You could disagree with me as an ex-Muslim, as a Christian, as whatever, and you can disagree with me and unfollow, or disagree with me and keep following, or express it. That doesn't bother me. And I think I might have some comments here who do disagree with me. Um, but there are people who are just so quick to to throw in comments that were, you could see the underlying hateful sentiment, but also they were so upset very quickly, as if I insulted their prophet. I may have made a couple of jokes about Christianity, but again, those weren't meant to aggravate, and I think they were pretty mild. But I think they were aggravated that I, talked about David Wood that way. Um, Anyway, yeah, I didn't see any of those fans of AP, but it's not a huge sample size, so don't make any definitive conclusions yet. Um, and the reaction that I got, only a couple more minutes before I get to the comments, the reactions that I got reminded me of something that I always try to keep in mind, is that humans are ultimately very similar. And that's why I like to remind people not to demonize Muslims. The same people, like, we all share, I don't know, the same kind of, well, there are differences between us, but among people as groups, I don't know how to word this. Biologically, we're the same. Um, the way that people think, we're the same. The way that people can be influenced to think are the same. So just because Muslims are in a certain position because of a lot of factors that they were put into, that whatever, it doesn't mean that Christians are better because their countries or their communities are doing better. There are a lot more factors involved in that. And this reminded me of how the reaction that I was getting was very similar to the reaction I was getting from Muslims. Of course, there's less threats there, so I'm not dismissing that. I'm not equating it. I know there's a difference, but it's not always very useful to highlight the difference in a context where it doesn't help. It's not relevant. But it did remind me that had the Christians been in that part of the world, had they been under the same circumstances, they would have turned out pretty similar. So it's nothing special, really. And there are differences in the religions that make certain mentalities more prominent or more likely to happen. But underneath, we're all the same. And yeah, and I want to mention sometimes I see a lot of comments saying that I mentioned one thing or another. Please don't believe anything unless you hear it, from a primary source. So unless you see a quote by me or a video, yeah, there's some hypocrisy in how some of this audience receives jokes about Islam or expects Muslims to receive jokes about Islam, yet they are very sensitive to jokes about their own religion and ideology or content creators. And I think we should be more consistent. And yeah, a couple more things. Yeah, and I didn't absolutely condemn David Wood or say that he should not talk about Islam again. And I didn't know about a lot of his background, and I will talk about that in the end. And I did mention this is the most controversial part of what I said, rightfully so. I didn't mention his race. I said this white guy, and I did say that it was in the context of what I thought in that moment. What is um, who invited you? As in, why is this white guy with a cross talking about this topic in this manner about the origami? I will explain again what I meant by that, and I will qualify it a little better. Uh, Apostate Prophet is still trolling in the comments. Mods, do something about that. I'm joking. He's saying, anyway, Aladdin, if you know that Islam is false, then I challenge you to do an open curse. Okay, full disclosure, I didn't watch the debate, but I did watch snippets. And for example, today was Friendly Ex-Muslims video about it, and I saw how he tried to score points against Apostate Prophet by saying, "I dare you to curse yourself or ask Allah to curse you," and then he laughed. How did you believe in Allah but also don't? It's just yeah, Ali Dawa is just a joke at this point. Anyway, all right, let's get to the comments. Let me put one on screen right now. There's a lot of them, and I'll try to get through them as quick as possible, so I might highlight some more than others. Okay, let's start from the top. So yeah, this one is actually not in support of David Wood or AP specifically. So this one says, my first interaction with David Wood was quite odd. I used to be a Muslim at the time, and I watched quite a bit of Mufti Abu Layth's content. When his house was attacked by radicals, Mufti made a video discussing it, talking about how much sorrow that brought him and how is he afraid for his children. That unfortunate incident was within the past year. The entire, and I mean the entire comment sections, was a constant, never-ending stream of Christians, proselytizers. It was an endless sea of Christians trying to push Mufti towards a certain direction after such a traumatic event. It was extremely bizarre. Why would an Islamic scholar have such a wave of Christians in his comments? Turns out a lot of them are supporters of David Wood. I don't think this comment says it, and I'm not asserting that David Wood had sent them there, but this is what this commenter is saying, that a lot of them are supporters from David Wood's channel. He says David Wood directed them at Mufti's channel. I don't know how that happened, but the general experience is just creeped the heck out of me. Reading through that comment section felt like diving into a cult. Everyone was saying the exact same thing over and over again. I want to highlight this part. I see that a lot on Muslim channels, and I also see it on Christian channels, and I saw it under David's video about his testimony. People just repeating the same thing. Jesus is great, saw the light, whatever it is. I don't remember exactly what they say. And that is eerie because it should get you thinking, why is it that everybody's repeating the same thing? It's not necessarily that they're wrong, but it's a red flag. It is insensitive if he had sent them towards Mufti Abu Layth that way. And there is that general insensitivity. I don't know if it's linked to all humans. I don't know if it has to do with the empathy being a little muted when you're so focused on one thing, like your religion, for example. But that is not the time or place. And I personally am annoyed when people try to, preach for Jesus in the comments, because they not only do that, they expect to not necessarily not be roasted, but they expect no opposition. When a lot of the commenters have been ostracized by their communities. They have maybe some religious trauma, maybe not, maybe they're just sick of this whole thing, and they just keep seeing it repeated. Of course, they're not going to be super nice to those people, and those people are offended by that, as if they're like, why are you against freedom of speech? We're not, but they also have the freedom of speech to kind of, neg you. So yeah, a commenter here is saying, Friendly Muslim is saying he did send them, he made a video about it. Again, I don't know if he explicitly sent them or if that was his intention, but I guess he did make a video about it. Mr. Monster says, and I'm going to try to get to comments every now and then. If I don't get to it immediately, it's been bookmarked. So don't worry. You are like, please undo that. I feel very self-conscious. You're like a true hero, like Aladdin from the story. Islam is like the evil Jafar, and even though it seems he took everything, Aladdin never gave up. So don't give up. Keep doing your work your way. Thank you. Um, I don't exactly like it when people. No, I don't like it when people call me some stuff like that, like hero or whatever, because I will make mistakes. I'm just some guy. So I'm amazed that I'm even able to do all of this. So yeah, please don't idolize me in any way, but I appreciate the compliment. Okay, so here, Christianity is a cult? Question mark. Why don't you just say that you want atheists as your audience, and by atheists you mean the ones that doesn't like AP's approach? That will narrow down who you want to be commenting on your videos. You'll feel more secure. Very loaded. I am waiting for your exposed videos on other critics of Islam. If they are on my YouTube recommendation list, good luck. So, lots to say here. Is Christianity a cult? I did call it that, and I might go through it later if we have the time, the bite model. And being a cult, there's this negative connotation. People think being a cult has to do with death or has to do with a specific image of a cult, like in a commune or something. That's not what a cult means. And you would come to realize that a lot of religions are cults by the definitions of what a cult is, and we might go through that if there is time. So that's what I mean by Christianity is a cult. So when they say there's no punishment for apostasy in Christianity, how does that negate Christianity being a cult? It's not that I just want atheists as my audience, no. And I'm not even like, I don't assert that I'm an atheist because it depends on how you define that. But point is, no, it's not that I just want atheists in my comments, and definitely not just the ones that don't like AP's approach. I think that's been made clear. So you'll feel more secure. I don't mind comments from all sorts of people, but I'm telling you how I feel about those comments. And I'm not saying one person or another shouldn't be commenting. However, I'm more than justified to say, for example, if you preach, you're going to be made fun of, or I really don't like that comment, that kind of comment. Here's an example. I'm a classical theist who likes your channel. Thank you, Jojo. And there are Christians, let me make that clear. There are a lot of Christians who do show support for ex-Muslims for the right reasons, or like to watch my channel even though they disagree and so on. But there are a lot of other examples. Yeah, so let's keep going. And I'm sorry if I'm talking a little quickly. It's just I want to get through all the comments before I have to go. Time's Up says, I think your feelings are valid. For the people who are confused, I think it's your airing your thoughts and reservations about what came to your mind and put you off when you came across him as a fresh ex-Muslim. True. Though I think it'll help you understand if you dig into his backstory of his friendship and discussions with Nabil Qureshi during his philosophy days. That brought this about, to better understand why he's passionate about it. Because of that, I don't see it as him simply having scoring intent, since he's barely ever proselytizing, and because he has put effort into research and debate for a decade now, when there were hardly any. I can appreciate his contribution. I think people grow and build. Their motivations might seem odd unless you look into their beginning. And that's the thing about spending a long time doing something. Things might seem far removed at first glance. So here's the thing. There's another comment that mentions that at first he used to proselytize and like try to get people to leave Islam and join Christianity. And there's always going to be that underlying intention, I think, or at least of a lot of people support him for that reason. And like I said, it's not a condemnation of all the work that he's ever done. And I didn't know about his backstory or that part of his backstory. I still don't know that much about it. I've just read in the comments. But it's important to understand how I felt about it from my point of view and the point of view of people like me. Because nobody, or not nobody, there's a lot of people who don't have the time to go through all of like someone's backstory and all of his content and look at how he was 10 years ago to to have an opinion, or not even to have an opinion about them, to be affected by a certain piece of content of theirs. For example, if someone comes across one of my videos and they dislike me from the first video, I understand that. I completely understand that. And if it affected them negatively, I hope that that doesn't happen. That's why I try to keep even the satirical stuff, still try to keep it balanced. And so that people don't get the wrong impression that I'm just there to, ridicule believers or something like that. So, but I understand when the content is a lot less nuanced. Like if you look at his channel, a lot of the thumbnails, at least, and a lot of the more recent videos are entrenched with a lot of drama, and that's the impression that it gives, and that's the effect that it has without someone delving into the content. So that's a valid thing to talk about. Holy Armor is a repeated commenter. They say, and here's some of the underlying hate that I'm talking about. Why do you always pronounce Alauddin in Arabic and Islam like the Dawah gang? You speak perfect English. Seems like there are some Dawah genes still deep inside. So they use some of these words interestingly. And there's this underlying sentiment that I don't know what it is: Islam, Muslims, Dawah, Arabness, something. They say you're a Muslim, you talk like a Muslim, you seem like a Muslim, you just don't believe. I find that hateful, and and don't you understand that I am an Arab? Like this is my first language. You think that Islam has a monopoly on pronouncing things in Arabic, and this is the kind of entitlement for this kind of viewer, which I want to let them know. You can be a viewer of mine or subscriber, but this is not the intention of my channel. If you're this kind of person who's here to just gather dirt on Islam, and um, like they're just like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, do you see this comment? Why do you talk in Arabic? They can't wrap their heads around the fact that my motivations and my purpose here, and the benefit for my channel is not what they're getting from David Wood, for example. Holy Armor, who's clearly just so happy about Christianity winning and, and Islam losing. So you don't understand why I'm doing this, and that's fine. Just don't be so confident about your position. um, I will speak however the hell I want. And I remember there was a video where I read the Quran, and there were some Christians already who are like, why do you have to sing it like that? And they were just revolted by it. And I need to remind them, this like hatred of Islam to a very high degree, to the point that they don't understand these small um, nuances, I guess, or the fact that I can still speak Arabic is, it's very unidimensional, and I don't like that. That's what I'm trying to offer with my channel. Not, I don't want to be unidimensional. So, okay, this is here one of the controversies. For those wondering why Apostate ad-Din used the words privileged and white in a video about religion, it's called critical race theory. I promise you that's not why. It's some wacky American idea about racial justice. AA is apparently influenced with. People always presume my influences, and they don't even listen to me. He also used the term white savior complex. I did, but it wasn't about AP, or David Wood, to describe David Wood in another comment racist. So, uh, why do you speak Islam instead of speaking American? Yeah, I still haven't learned American as a second language. Um, let's see. So, here's what I said in the context of my video. I said, as that kind of as a fresh ex-Muslim, let's call it that, I see a white guy in a cross complaining about eBay taking down his listing for a Quran origami. And he has the right to put up Quran origami, and he has the right to complain, rightfully so, about eBay being uh, selective about what they enforce and what is hate speech and so on. All of that is valid. But me, as a person who was programmed to fear this kind of, white people are out to get Islam, or just everybody is out to get Islam, and I should have qualified white American Christian, that whole archetype, uh, or not even necessarily Christian, but that archetype. I should have clarified that better. But that's where my mind was. Seeing that was an immediate reaction of defensiveness and pulling back and retracting, and it didn't help me. And it and I understand that there are other content creators for that kind of thing, but I am telling you how it's perceived from my point of view. He doesn't have to change anything about how he operates, but it's important that people know that some of us think this way. And myself, especially as someone who's in the public eye, who people always accuse of being a copycat of David Wood when it's far from it. So this is not extra defensiveness of me. This is telling you for the first time what I think. So yeah, I hope that clarifies it. And the white savior complex, that's what I see in a lot of those commenters. They seem to infantilize Muslims and ex-Muslims, and the moment that we say anything that disagrees with them or their worldview, they turn to saying things like you can tell that they think of you lowly, and they think you still have some attachment to Islam, and because of that, culturally, religiously, or genetic, I don't know, they think of you more lowly. So it's not about Sarah making this comment, but I see this white savior complex in some of our supporters, and I don't like that. Um, yeah, and someone is saying let's see, Miss Matola, you're going on about David's eBay videos, ridiculous. You know that he was trolling eBay, very important message. I understand, and I had just repeated. This is how it affected me in that moment, and his trollish attitude about a lot of things, they come off that way without me doing a deep dive, because someone in that position with that hesitation about the topic in general, once they see this and they retract, do you think they're going to go do a deep dive about what a Christian is saying about Islam? No, they're just going to try to avoid it, or they're going to be more defensive towards Islam. So that's what I'm posing here. Um, yeah. So let's see. Am I wrong not to like it when people talk about white or colored people? No, you're not wrong. I understand that sensitivity, and that's why I'm trying to clarify here. And I'm telling you that this knee-jerk reaction is something that's instilled in us. I'm not saying it's a good thing. And this archetype of the white man out to get Islam, ironically, we're also accused of the opposite. As ex-Muslim, we're told that we worship the white man, or we're just yearning for the Westerners' approval and attention. And I hope that this gives you both sides of the story. Let's see. I know at least 5 people in your chat who hated your video and are not white people you assume so much. I'm talking about a specific kind of person that I've seen a lot of. I'm not saying all the people, and I think that's pretty clear. Let's see. Okay, so this is an example of the kind of person that I find problematic. So they're saying, I've been following your videos, I like your content, and so on. You come off as someone who thinks they're better than others and that has a higher moral superiority complex. You got out of your way to show how much better you are to criticize things about others. While you might be right, sometimes they seem forced into a topic that has nothing to do with the critique you're doing. I'll take this apart, piece by piece. So I've heard this from some people before, that I think or come off as pompous, or that I think I'm more justified to talk about something than other people. I ask them, as I will ask this person, can you give me examples? That's not me being defensive. It's more like, if I'm unaware of that vibe that I'm giving off, if I'm not saying it explicitly, but it's coming off in my words one way or another, I want to know so I can correct that. Right? I'm not saying that's not correct. So I wanted to ask for clarifications on that. And I wanted to know any examples when I put somebody else next to me and I said, look at me versus them. That's not even what I did in this video at all. And this person couldn't provide an example of that. But if that's the vibe that I'm giving off, I would like pointers so I can correct that. And then sometimes seem forced into a topic that has nothing to do with the critique you're doing. This is extremely relevant to not the critique that I'm doing, and that's another point. My channel is not just about critiquing Islam. As I've explained so many times before, part of it is advocacy for ex-Muslims, and I see this as a potential negative that harms ex-Muslims. Does that make sense? So it is relevant to me, especially as an ex-Muslim, I'm trying to share my perspective on something, and I get a lot of these Christians shutting me down and saying, all sorts of things. So I'm trying to get them to see how they're drowning out our voices. They can disagree with me, but their knee-jerk reaction to just support whoever the guy is is a problem for us. And I'm saying, maybe, I guess this is another point. I am warning ex-Muslims, beware of support for the wrong reasons. It doesn't mean that every Christian who wants to support us is doing it for the wrong reasons. I've seen sweethearts in the comments. I've seen them express very clearly that they still believe and why they support us. And sometimes it has nothing to do with, the usual, because Islam is evil and like they're taking over and stuff. Sometimes it's genuine concern for us. And yeah, and that's what I'm trying to highlight here. So again, he goes on to say that I'm pompous and stuff. Here, it's like in every video you have to say how different you are, which implies you're better. I don't think that's factual, right? I'm asking, can you tell me in other videos, when did I say that I am different and therefore I am better? I've never said my approach is this, but look at this other guy. Their approach is different. I haven't said that. People point it out sometimes, and I want to add some nuance to it. Like when I said, for example, about Apostate Prophet, I don't like being put side to side next to Apostate Prophet, and they say your approach is like you're a lot more patient. For example, I'm a lot more patient because look at how small my channel is, and look at how I started compared to him being just berated all the time by those dawah people. Put me in that position, I will be very, very different. So I don't think it's an apples to apples comparison. And so I'm actually doing the opposite of what you're claiming. So I wanted examples, right? And let's see. For example, in this video, you said, while I don't think AP has necessarily nefarious intentions, I worded it a little differently, but I did say something like that. And that was in response to people saying that AP has bad intentions. And I was saying, no, I don't believe that. It sounds like you're implying he's doing something wrong, or it's not your style. Meanwhile, I found your channel through him. And that point is going to come out later about how uh, I have them to thank, like is what people are saying for having this channel. I'll talk about that later in a bit. So might be missing a couple of files here. We'll see. Here's what I mean. You're definitely still a Muslim. You just don't believe in God. So it's using Muslim as a derogatory word, and it's implying that anything bad is Muslim, basically. So if I criticize you, it's definitely me being hateful, projecting, or I'm not doing the equivalent of showing you the specific hadith or verse. So yeah, he was saying earlier in a screenshot that I'm acting like a Muslim because I was, you can read my comments again. I was genuinely asking, can you point out what I'm doing that is wrong with examples so I can correct it? And he saw that as me being pedantic, like some apologists, or as he's calling it, like a Muslim would ask for show me the hadith and so on. So I'm not commenting on how prevalent that is in these discussions about Islam. I'm asking him, why are you saying like a Muslim? Because I'm asking you to help me find what is wrong here. And he just turns to using this as a derogatory term. And he's saying, I'm a Muslim, I just don't believe. So what does the word Muslim mean to him? And he's like, don't worry, I unsubscribed when I said I would earlier. After this, you won't see me in your channel. Now you're implying I'm bigoted. I'm getting a vibe like that. So see how delusional you are. I'm defending an ex-Muslim, but I'm anti-ex-Muslim. No, your bigotry or supposed bigotry is not about them being anti-ex-Muslim. It's about actually maybe anti-Muslim. So I don't support Islam. And I have a lot of criticism about a lot of hateful sentiments that Muslims hold in the mainstream, but I like to remind people of how they got to that point, how it's not all of them, and the fact that it affects us more than it affects these people who are more riled up about it than us, to the point that they overshadow us. Yeah, so you're just a kid, go to bed. There's a lot of, and I noticed the age of a lot of those followers. They're older than I am, and they keep bringing that point up. All right, you just lost my subscription. If that was enough to make you unsubscribe, I see. I don't know what to tell you. Fine, like I'm not hurt by your unsubscription, even if you do agree with me and you want to unsubscribe. Um, Okay, let me address this comment by Lindsay. Maybe it's not derogatory. Maybe he's saying you still have the harmful parts of the Muslim mentality. What is the Muslim mentality? That's the problem. You can't say the Muslim mentality and leave it at that. That's way too generic and never going to be fair. And he doesn't elaborate. He just says, you're a Muslim except you don't believe in God. That's extremely generic. It's not as nuanced as you put it. And even your comments, like I'm not attacking you, but that's still not nuanced enough. So yeah. Um, yeah, and you need to be more receptive to this kind of like it was just 10 minutes of me. Not all of them were even about David Wood. And as soon as they heard that I had a negative reaction to his thumbnails or the first video that I saw, they're like, you just lost my subscription. As if they expect me to be fully on board with Christianity or like not touch that topic or anything like that. Let's see. Next comment. So I'll try to go through this quickly. So Mika, thank you for the support. She was saying, see, that's the thing. A lot of people say that I do echo their thoughts. And it doesn't mean that I think I'm right because people agree with me. It means that my voice is valuable in a sense because I'm speaking for those people without really getting the feedback from them and then echoing it. Sometimes I do that, but I'm explicitly saying this is the story of this person or that person. But it's good to realize that what I'm saying isn't just, I'm not making stuff up, and people aren't saying it enough that they feel like they're heard. So this is why I'm doing this. And here's an important point. I admit I find myself descending into periods of hopelessness about how AP sometimes entertains David Wood's style of critique, such as wearing the niqab, ridicule of the headscarf, and so many of the women around me used to wear it. So let me talk about this. So this is one thing that could be off-putting to Muslims and ex-Muslims when they see a ridicule that they're warned about. They're told that there are enemies of Islam. They're told that the world is demonizing Muslims, and they see kind of, maybe in this case, like they're not demonizing Muslims, but they see something pushing their conclusion towards that. They're going to retract. They're going to feel bad about themselves. They're going to feel like they're doing something wrong by being an ex-Muslim. So just offering this opposing opinion that I'm putting out here, or this opposing perspective, is making people aware of that. It doesn't mean that AP or David would have to change their style, but I'm letting people know there are other voices out there that are different in approach, because different things work for different people. And this is my point here. And I keep seeing this repeated. So I guess I'm not getting this out of nowhere. People keep saying the white savior complex is strong in them. Not all of them, but it is a repetitive theme that I feel like those people are looking down on us and on Muslims. And it's not up to them to tell me that, no, you need to be okay with it, and they're not looking down on you, or other commenters saying, but that's not what they're doing. This is how it's perceived. So, that means that truly there's something that needs to change. Or it doesn't have to change, but at least now they know our point of view about it. Stefan says, how do you know that you lost a subscription was from a Christian? You're also assuming a lot. That's based on a lot of commenters who said the same exact thing. I'm not saying each, like for example, if I go back, I don't know if this person is a Christian. I'm pretty certain based on comforter spirit. Come on, like I'm not being bigoted here. Let's see. I'm not sure what this means. The harmful mentality extends beyond that, but you've unraveled yourself from a lot of that, judging by your content. Not sure what that means exactly. More about this. So yeah, this is what I'm talking about. So Mika, I think, is saying that guilt by association, we do feel guilty. Like people who have left Islam, some of us would feel guilty seeing a critic acting in a way that we wouldn't. And we feel like worse about ourselves by extension. And we don't have to. Like if they see their thoughts more more accurately echoed by somebody else, maybe not even me, then that helps them. So I'm letting them know there's alternative options, and also expressing my, like, I've never made this point before, and the first time that I make it, people are really like losing their minds. Let's see. So interesting. Chillax, you're too focused on ex-Muslims and don't seem to understand that David primarily started his channel to educate ignorant Westerners about Islam and to teach Christians how to answer Muslims. But that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying his purpose is to help ex-Muslims. This is exactly what I'm saying. I'm highlighting how his purpose and his goals are different than ours, and how sometimes that gets in the way of what we're doing or overshadows what we're doing. And again, it's not saying stop doing what you're doing. I'm letting people know about this. And if there's someone who was repulsed by the first approach and they see me vocally saying this, vocally saying I recognize all this, then they might be more likely to escape this shell, this retraction, and see content not necessarily by me. Like, this is not promotion for myself in any way. This is just me saying this is what I think. Um, and a lot of people are taking it like some kind of personal attack, and you should be able to accept it a little better. So, I wish he took more time to research. Like I said, this wasn't about an assessment of his whole brand, or sorry, not even his brand, his whole content or what he's been doing for 10, 15 years. You're clearly nowhere. You neither support ex-Muslims, what? Nor anyone who's against Islam, what? You oppose their approaches in attacking Islam. You're still not hearing me out. One thing that pissed me off is your indecision and ambivalence. You're criticizing them, yet telling us nothing about your approach. Well, tell us your approach. Yours seems better. There's a lot of projection of people thinking that I think I'm better than people, and I'm still waiting for answers. So, for example, and I think they're alluding to, I made a video about existentialism, and the existentialism that we feel as, or some of us feel as apostates. And there's no shame in that. But when someone like this comes out and kind of ridicules it, I don't know if they're doing it, but I hear it often and often. They keep ridiculing this, like, oh, you don't even have a purpose, but look at me, I'm such a good, believer, whatever it may be. I have a purpose, so why are you even criticizing? Uh, no, we need to have the space to talk about this. And I do explain what my worldview is. I do talk about that. The difference is somebody like, a Christian apologist is defending a very specific, um, a very specific version of their religion or whatever it may be, and they're promoting it. I'm not promoting a specific ideology. I'm talking about that process of leaving Islam. I'm talking about Islam. There are, I admit that there's a lot of avenues, not admit, I say that there are a lot of avenues from there. And I'm not promoting a specific one because mine is always a work in progress. And the point of my channel isn't to get people to adopt my worldview specifically, or to tell them this is the way out and this is how you continue. So I hope you recognize that. And let's see, this time I had to criticize. It's okay to be my follower and criticize. I'm okay with that. I wish you understood the magnitude of danger these two men expose themselves to. I do. Just to have any ex-Muslim live a free life. Again, I don't think that's David Wood's motivation, that he's doing this so that we can have a free life, or at least the comments seem to not agree about this. And they say this as if I'm not aware of the dangers. Do you not see me in my disguise? Let's see. Your style. Okay, this is interesting. Your style sends me to sleep. David Wood and Apostate Prophet are the finest example of interaction, getting the message out there, how fabric and blah, 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 blah. That's okay. That's okay if you don't like my style. And it seems to work a lot better for some people, and for some people it doesn't. I don't know why people seem to think that I'm saying one is absolutely better than another. I think I think a lot of this is just projection. And okay, this is I don't want to make that assertion. Hassan Radwan saying the game is up, ala ad-din, and the secret is out. You're an undercover Muslim. Exactly. Thank you, Robert. Finally, someone just saying it so I don't have to. This is the kind of white-splaining that makes David Wood types so yikey-bikey. Maybe they're not white. Okay, I take that back. Maybe they're not white. But I do see that repetitive theme, right? And I do see them explaining to me things about how I should perceive it. Don't you understand that this is not about whether David Wood should be talking about the topic at all? This is about how it's perceived by people like myself and how it affects us. It doesn't have to mean that he needs to change or that he should shut up. So I hope people understand that it's not up to you to tell me how to feel about David Wood or what my opinion of David Wood should be. You could say that it's an unfair assessment of who David Wood is, as a whole person, but I never made an assessment about David Wood as a whole person. Um, let's see. Like, here's another comment who, is echoing my thoughts. Never bothered to watch any of David Wood's videos, even in collaboration with AP, because I thought he was a hypocrite to criticize Islam while he was an active Christian. I'm an ex-Catholic. So about that. So I am not well informed on Christianity, and I see a lot of Christians who are like, well, if you don't know about Christianity, don't talk about it. And I'm not here criticizing Christianity. I don't make a video saying the Holy Trinity is stupid and here's why. I don't think the Holy Trinity is sensible. And I have the right to make a joke about that every now and then, for example. Or in that video, I made a couple of jokes about crucifixion. And I don't have to be an expert on Christianity to do that. And I can still maintain that I feel discomfort or distrust knowing that someone is an absolute apologist for Christianity, yet also trying to criticize another religion. Like, here's an example, and I'm quoting a comment talking about this. So if I'm wrong, please correct me. But at some point, he was talking about how because God delivers morality, right? If he was sure that God was saying you need to kill your son, like I suppose in the story of Ibrahim and Ismail, or Abraham and Ishmael, he would do it. And I completely disagree with that. And I think that's something I can criticize him on, and I can distrust him for, and I can distrust his content about Islam based on that. And I'm free to do that, and I'm free to express my opinion about that. If David Wood was an atheist, maybe you would have disliked him less. If he was an atheist, then a lot of what I'm talking about would be very different. Okay, so thank you for the super chat. King Prince says, please don't suspect people of non-Muslim background to have bad intent or bigotry just because considering Islam as an enemy religion. David Wood has good. Okay, I'll read the rest of the comment when it comes. It's not necessarily that anyone who's non-Muslim has bad intentions, and I've repeated that in this live stream, that a lot of them have good intentions and they express that. But there are ones that clearly have bad intentions, and those are the ones that I'm highlighting. The reason because he cares about Christians being persecuted in Muslim majority countries as a result of Islamic teaching. Yeah, that's a whole other topic. So again, I need to remind you, this is about my perception about him in this context. But thank you for the super chat. So, and the white privilege I was talking about. So David Wood was complaining about this, and at least in that snapshot, right? I am going through these struggles, and there's this white guy in a cross, as I put it, in the US. Yes, he's in danger because of his criticism of Islam, but he has the luxury of even getting to that point, then getting in danger. When if a Muslim was to do this, or an ex-Muslim was to do this, especially in okay, here's the relevance of white. If they're not white, if they're from an Arab background, you know how much investigation would go into their background, into their family life, into their community, into their country, if they belong to a non-secular country. That's the white privilege that I was talking about, this image of the white Western man. It's not an accurate word to use, but I'm telling you, this is what the archetype was. So he has the privilege to get as far as making the origami and then complain about these issues, which are valid issues. But here I am thinking about how someone in my position has so much more worries. So to say that there's no privilege there at all, it's not to discount the other hardships in his life or to say that he's privileged in every single way, but there's a privilege here that I hope that you recognize. So to keep repeating, no, he's not, or you can't talk about that as if there is privilege, I can and I will. Let's see. It must be hard to constantly try to distinguish yourself from other critics of Islam, except when have I constantly tried to do that? People make it seem like in a lot of my videos, I'm like, look at this critic, but I'm not like that. I don't do that. I believe there's no need to do that, which I don't do. It's like constantly advertising your brand, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't do that. Your soft style is needed, but to this day and age, we need people like AP and the likes. And I've not acknowledged that in the video as well. Different strokes for different folks. And AP has a lot more educational content than I will ever be able to make in my time of doing this, especially given how a lot of my content is not directly about listing some facts about Islam or critiquing them in that systematic way. So I acknowledge that as well. This video is more about David Wood. So it was supposed to be about both, and it was about both. So the fact that David Wood's segment took a little longer just happened that way because I had more thoughts about that. And I wasn't saying you shouldn't be criticizing Islam and it's reserved for abandoning the faith. I specifically give an example of Myth Vision, Derek from Myth Vision. Um, I like he seems less partial, right? Because he's not defending a religion that has similar downfalls, and he's not on board to the point that he has to defend his point of view against everything to death, because you can't, as a believer, as an apologist, concede that something is wrong with your religion. You have to make sense of it, and like David put it himself, he would kill his own son if that was what God commanded. But someone like Derek, and not to pit them against each other, but I'm giving an example, also a critic of Islam. We probably don't agree on a lot of things. He didn't leave Islam. He's a white person. And I've given Derek as an example because I said it's not about being white per se. Um, he's also privileged in many ways. He's not in as much danger. And they, where was I going with this? And I'm not saying he shouldn't criticize Islam either, but I'm more comfortable as an ex-Muslim from this position to hearing his content because of him being less partial, if I'm using that word correctly, and him being open to changing his conclusions. David Wood is not in a million years going to change his conclusions about Christianity and remain an apologist, right? Let's see. So as a Muslim, I don't think much of David Wood, or I didn't think much of David Wood because I thought he was deceiving us and he was not telling the truth about Islam. That's what I'm saying. As an ex-Muslim atheist, I enjoy listening to him because he's entertaining but not dishonest, and I acknowledge that as well. Some people are, attracted to that kind of content. His origami started when the Dawah started threats against AP and other ex-Muslims' wives. He ripped a book to protest. That's more than fair. Yeah, and I didn't even mention the book ripping. And like I said, this is about my perception of it at that time and how it affected me, regardless of what was behind it. So I hope I made that clear. David's with older content was focused on converting Muslims to Christianity. So see, I'm not being unfair in that characterization. So that perception is fair. With time, the content changed because more threats, blah, blah, blah. Not blah, blah, blahs, and this is not important, but I'm trying to get through the comment. I still don't feel like he's an expert on these subjects, but I watch with interest. So please forgive me when I misuse the term. With that caveat, I think David's main target is the Dawah community. And I understand. And like I said, somebody has to do it, I suppose. But I feel like his constant talk about Islam and the Dawah community, it takes away, at least from the point of view of someone like me, not everybody, it takes away from his value in the other things to me, as a critic of Islam, in a way that I would receive. So I completely understand that it's different. I keep repeating that. Let's see. I can't read all of this comment. Okay. Some of David's most inflammatory and provocative series were optional if you believe in his self-declared motives. In several uploads, he warned people that he would leave their prophet alone if they stopped threatening his friends and family. He could escalate if they wanted to, and so on. I understand that, but like I said again, people aren't here to follow through every single thing that he did, or someone in my position wasn't there to follow through every single thing that he did and then have an opinion for himself, a private opinion even. So yeah, I'm an atheist and I love David. You should definitely check out more serious videos. He's always quoting Islamic sources. Yeah, already acknowledged it's not about his content or the truthfulness of it. Also, Islam makes wild claims about Christianity. Yeah, and he has full right, and I completely understand why he would make videos about like defending Christianity from those claims by like Muslims about whatever it is they let's say lie about what Christians believe, because I've seen that, I've seen them, and I've seen it from both sides, saying that in Christianity they believe this and that when it's not true. I'm 150 says, thank you for being fair. I'm just trying to do my part. I'm not I'm not doing this like I don't know what to say. Oh, you're welcome. I don't know. That feels too self-indulgent to say you're welcome, but I'm glad that you perceive it that way. Let's say. Okay, multiple comments. You hypocrite! Did you forget Sam Shamshun and Robert B. Spencer? Not sure what the relevance of that is, but I don't like this guy based on what little I know about him, and he was collaborating with David Wood, so you know I don't know what you mean here. You are just an envious copycat. Funny coming from a Christian when like the part of the point of that video was to demonstrate how I'm not a copycat or what I think of people calling me a copycat. Um, wood is wood for fire to shed light on dark, wicked places. Ask David about his faith, and I'm sure he answers. He have overcome the taqiyya. Okay, this is a good point. Taqiyya is a word that Christians, or the Christians who are like anti-Islam, whatever you want to call them. I don't know what term to give them because I don't want to generalize Christians. I mean, followers of David Wood who are adamant about preaching Christianity and like writing all these repetitive comments and so on, they misunderstand what taqiyya means. And I correct it sometimes, and sometimes I just run out of breath. Um, so taqiyya is a concept in Islam. And as far as I remember, it's about being able to profess that you're not a Muslim if your life was in danger, you're under persecution for being a Muslim. I understand that. But then Christians, and I don't know if David has actually actively, you know, promoted this. I'm not familiar, but I see it a lot from his followers using taqiyya as that this concept that Muslims are allowed to deceive you for the sake of Islam. And I keep telling them that is wrong. And I don't like that being repeated. And I see him like I don't think David is working against that false definition. For example, I like to be factual. Taqiyya is a precautionary dissimulation or denial of religious belief and practice in the face of persecution. Yeah, so okay, he does define it better here, but what does David overcome the taqiyya? I don't understand that. They seem to still be conflating it. And okay, that's a good point. Taqiyya and Abdul come from Christian Prince, a guy that I really dislike based on very little that I've known about him. And I think that is more than deserved. Um, Coffee7 says, you still have the Islam thing in your mind and body, let go of agnostic here. So this is what I'm saying, this underlying false tying the Islam thing to whatever it is negative connotation they have. And let me phrase it this way. This Islam thing that they claim, like be it, I don't know, some bias or whatever, you see it on the other side of the aisle. It's a human thing, whatever this thing that they perceive to be negative. So I don't like it when they phrase it that way. And in this case, it's not a Christian, it's an agnostic. So it goes to show that this kind of language is used by a bunch of people. And there's a lot of comparisons that I keep seeing, Christians and Muslims, and which one is worse historically, and Christianity is worse than Islam, or vice versa. I don't care for these conversations. I keep seeing them repeated in these comments under that video. This is not to say that Christianity is better or worse than Islam, and bringing that into the conversation is completely irrelevant. But Christianity is not free of skeletons in its closet, be it because of people misunderstanding Jesus or otherwise. It still falls under the responsibility of whoever God, revealed this message, which I don't think is actually God. So it is in some sense tied to the religion, just like Muslims are not necessarily supporters of extremism, but it does have to do on some level with the religion itself. So this stuff historically that happened has to do on some level with Christianity itself. And I'm not in a position or interest to debate that. So it's very irrelevant most of the time. Apostate, I'm not gatekeeping criticism of Islam. Also, who invited you? Again, like I said in the video, that was my first thought, as I made very explicit, as someone who is in that position. Let's see. So I completely agree that David Wood's style can be abrasive at times. My primary gripe with him, it should, however, be noted that your unfamiliarity with content really shines through here. I've repeated that 1,000 times. Yes, this is about my first impression and about how he is perceived by us and how that alone has negative effects, because not everybody has the time or interest to dive deep into his content before it having an emotional reaction of any sort or effect on them. Let's see. Okay, moving on. Yeah, so you see this kind of comment, I didn't put it because I'm angry at it, or because I think this person is being disrespectful or anything, or being bigoted. This is a disagreement that I really don't mind. Um, so this person here, I'm guessing they're defending Christian Prince. You seem to dislike a lot of people based on the very little you know about them. Christian Prince has a reputation for being extremely abrasive, very confrontational. I'm a person who doesn't like those hostile debates, and he is known for that. So how much of him do I really need to know before I have a first impression about him? So no, it's not that I prejudge people unfairly. It's that this is their brand. Like this guy, this Christian Prince guy, that's his brand, right? Why would I delve into his content to start to judge him? Um, yeah, and just to be clear, the reason why I'm talking very quickly is not because I'm stressed by this. I just want to clarify all of this. And I expect all of this to die down pretty quickly. And if it doesn't, I will just remind the Christians who are behaving in this particular way that, these are my thoughts about it. But I'm not stressed by it. I just want it to be clear, because otherwise you would see my thoughts in what, one response, two responses. So it's just easier to do it in a video. Um, I feel like you should have researched blah blah blah. The story is deeper than white privilege guy critiquing Islam, shallow, hypocritical. Don't do their homework. Again, I've already addressed that. All right. So this is talking about his backstory and how his friend passed away. And let's see. You will see this some sort of pattern. David sometimes loses inspiration to criticize Islam until something happens. When Hijab made gruesome posts about David's family and wife, making threats about his wife and Abdullah Samir, I'm aware of that. He had urged to criticize Islam very harshly, and I understand how that provocation makes things worse. But here's part of why it's not just his first impressions, it's the kind of following that he garners, that he cannot be responsible for all of his followers. Just like I can't be responsible for the people in my comments behaving in a certain way. But at least I try to do my due diligence and I point out how that is wrong. But I see this repetitive theme of his followers when they come to my comments and under his comments, and I see no policing by him. I see no pointing out that this is a wrong sentiment. And I don't know if he's in a position to ever feel that empathy for Muslims, because he's not among them. So I am letting people know how I feel about that. So this has to do with an admission by David Wood. Is a psychopath and tried to kill his father using a hammer. I didn't know that before my video, but I did watch his testimony, his 30-minute like artistic testimony about it. I will talk about that at the end if there is enough time. Who cares what you feel? AP and DW are legends. And here's the tribalism thing. You don't have to be all in or all out about someone. I don't want anyone to go to somebody else's comments and defend me in that manner, or say that I'm a legend. Who cares what you feel? It is valid what other people perceive me to be. It doesn't mean that I have to change my view of myself because of haters, for example. No, it means that I need to adjust if there's actually something wrong that I'm doing. I don't need to. I do want to. And it's good to know how that is being perceived, because if I'm causing more harm than I am doing good, I need to adjust, right? I need to keep all of that in mind. So telling me that they're legends, I don't care that they're legends. It's not me taking away from their legend status. And I think people do care what I feel, because they too feel the same way. And those are the people I care about. This is not about garnering support for me versus them. Exactly. Thank you. So here's a comment that describes that. At the end of the day, this is just what Apostate Allah feels. You don't have to agree or feel the same way. Thank you. Let's see. It doesn't work like that. He doesn't have such powers. Let people watch what they want, and if certain comments bother him, he can filter or turn off. So you're telling me, and this is the kind of, trying to silence us and not realizing that you're trying to silence us. You're telling me that I shouldn't talk about this? This is the first time that I'm ever talking about this. And you're telling me I shouldn't? I should just put filters on it? No, I think this is more productive than putting filters on my comments, because this is highlighting how we perceive it, and maybe could change the minds of some people who behave this way. Maybe when they see how they're being perceived and how it's not helping anybody, and how it's kind of making enemies out of a group that could be allies in a sense. Not an ally of Christianity, but just allies of people who want to keep the peace, for example. But the more that these people behave that way, the more that I and people like myself and like, I try to be fair, but at the end I'm gonna have a little bit of a bias against that kind of person. So we're not gonna have we're not gonna achieve whatever it is, this goal that you think we might have in common, which is, achieving peace, or getting rid of extremism or something like that. Um, we judge Christianity by Christ, not by what random people in history do to call themselves Christian. It's funny because I hear the same thing from Muslims. So again, highlighting how we're all very similar. Do a video, Christianity, present all of your evidence and knowledge for your claims. That would be interesting. Trying to lump us with one Blackstone kissing Arab pagan pedo prophet cult mafia. Um, so much here to unpack. First of all, I'm not lumping you with anybody. And maybe sometimes I've said I notice the similarities, but this has come after the video, so I'm not sure what this was in relation to. I don't think I've ever said anything like this before. Um, and you can see here, like, Blackstone kissing Arab, like Arab pagan. What does that have to do with anything? Did you not realize that I'm Arab? Do you not see again why this people keep saying, "What's the relevance of race?" Here it is. I'm not bringing this out of nowhere. This looking down on us is shining through. So it's not unfair of me to be frustrated with that. And this is not me saying Christianity is bad because of the like Christianity is false because of the Crusades, or Christianity is false because David Wood, I don't like him. So I don't have to go and make a whole video about Christianity to make a joke about crucifixion. Someone's saying you actually lump Christianity with Islam. No. So if you want to consider me lumping them, that they're man-made religions, yes, I lump them, that they have similarities in terms of, a sadistic God who tortures for worship and is super petty and obsessed. All of that, yeah. And I don't have to do a dissertation on Christianity to tell you that this is my view on these aspects of Christianity. And if you don't like it, you can express that in a comment. That's fine. But you don't have to pull the Arab card. That's very bizarre. Um, let's see. I'm someone who follows you, AP, David, friendly ex-Muslim, etc. I enjoy that you're candid about your perspective. David has a lot of charisma, and I think it's easy to get wrapped up in that. But I think what you're doing is invaluable. Thank you. I'm not an ex-Muslim myself, but my closest friends were Muslim. One converted to Christianity, the other is theistic. And I think from what I've heard about my friends, David's approach appeals more to the kinds of people who appreciate more abrasive, loud attitudes and criticisms. And exactly, and that's what I'm saying. I was the kind of person who not only doesn't appreciate it, but it harmed me. And in a sense, I am like, people who see this video, Muslims, for example, they start realizing, okay, um, there are ex-Muslims out there who aren't on board with that. That might open their minds up to listening to us more. They don't have to necessarily leave Islam, but at least they understand us better. There might be Muslims who are questioning Muslims, or ex-Muslims who are feeling discouraged by that kind of approach, and they realize, no, there are other people. This is not all what anti-Islam is. So yeah. General says, I'm not sure why people expect you to sympathize with any religion as an atheist. What is even happening? This speaks to a bigger point here. The entitlement, not only of Christians, but of religious people, or of people in general. Because you get Muslims saying similar things, and how you should not criticize unless so and so, you should respect our beliefs. And Christians, they turn around and they say, look at those Muslims being offended. And then they say, you can't, like, you're being unfair to Christianity. You can't talk about it. You're doing the same thing, just on the other side of the aisle. Wasn't Jesus an Arab? I don't remember historically if he was an Arab or something else in that region, but he wasn't white. Stop whitewashing Jesus on your crosses and stuff. He wasn't white. Let's see. I do believe that sometimes mockery is a tool. I agree. But from my perspective and my culture, British, lol. I'm sorry, mate. That's kind of Australian, but that sucked. Your approach would appeal for me on a far more personal level. Keep doing what you're doing and creating your own niche. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's really important the way you navigate your approach, not to be offensive, but rather to raise questions is very effective. Thank you. And I want to raise a point here. It's not that I'm walking on eggshells to not offend anybody, and it's not that I'm offending people on purpose. I say things that I think, this is as offensive as it is. I would make a joke or something. The joke is meant to open people's minds about it, or give relief to people who are scared of the idea, or just give relief to ex-Muslims and so on. The intent isn't to offend, but if it does offend, as long as it's justified, I don't mind doing it. But you can tell that it's not necessarily to drum up drama and get views based on that offense. I don't really believe that trying to convert ex-Muslims is inherently predatory, because if you believe something to be true, then to be frank, why wouldn't you? It's not that I think people who are trying to convert are intentionally being predatory. Just like, this is again going back to cults. People, they think they're doing the right thing, just like Muslims think they're doing the right thing. Even the ones who would disown their child or their son or daughter for leaving Islam, they think they're doing it for the right reasons. It doesn't mean that it's not harmful, right? It doesn't mean that it's not predatory in a sense to how a lot of not a lot. There are many converts who join certain religions because they're desperate. They're in a position of weakness. It happens in prisons, for example, which I think is very similar to David's story. It happens when someone has been abused and they need shelter and place. And it doesn't have to be intentional to be predatory, but I think there should be more sensitivity and there needs to be more of a gap, right? Before you start preaching to someone who has just left a religion. And I talked about why that's not a good thing. I love I love some of these. Okay, it is predatory, but they might not realize that it is predatory, or they might not be doing it on purpose because they think they're doing the right thing. AA reminds me of my old battery that I can't use anymore for not being able to make my flashlight brighter. Goodbye, AA. So I guess because I'm dim. Here's something that I notice a lot of the language used and a lot of the people straight up saying, that I'm young and unwise and stuff. I don't disagree that I have a lot to learn, but I'm getting the sense that a lot of the viewers who were very aggravated by this or coming from that channel are older. And that's interesting because I have nothing against older people. Don't get me wrong. But I like that a lot of my viewers are on the younger side, as in pretty much all of them are over 18, just to be clear, like looking at my statistics. But I like that I'm able to reach a younger audience because you've got all of these religious people who are just like hard, like their heads are just very strict on whatever they believe, and that's why they're pretty aggravated. And I like that I'm able to reach people who are still doing a lot of thinking for themselves. Again, not a condemnation of old people and not being ageist, but I see this repetitive theme of people talking down on me, Christians coming from that channel talking down on me, and they're usually older. Can you do in Islamic countries online what you're doing now in Christian countries? Well, first of all, none of these countries are Christian countries. Let's just be clear about that. They're secular countries, and you're allowed to do a lot of things because of secularism. You don't realize that. But again, comparing Christianity to Islam, given how much time Christianity has had to evolve and a lot of other factors, it's not a fair comparison to just give yourself points and take credit for it. You were just someone who was born into this country, into this Christianity. Why are you taking credit for it? Why do you think it's a win, especially in the context of that video? What does that have to do with anything? Hassan Odwan says, I'm 63 and I'm your biggest fan. I really appreciate your support. It is extremely flattering. And I wondered in the back of my mind, is Hassan watching this? Is he going to take offense to this? No, Hassan Alwan is proof that you can be in the older category, let's just call in the older age range, and still be very mentally plastic and malleable and very functional and open to challenging your beliefs. So anyway, thank you for the comment. Passes erit Bisum says, thank you for the super chat. They say, will you ever do a face reveal? I suspect there's a handsome face beneath the mask. Please grace us with your face plus your voice. Okay, I didn't read that before highlighting it. No, I don't think so. I don't think so for obvious reasons, but thank you. That's flattering. It's funny because everybody give it up for Music Guy. I love this guy. He's moderating all the time without me even asking him to. I appreciate it. He's saying, "Wow, some people SMH." It's funny because I don't know what people because of the amount of people here. Also, yeah. Next one right here. You claim to think critically, but then say the most unintelligent things like all religions are false. You need to explain your epistemological framework for understanding the world before you say ignorant things like all religions are false. I can sense the offense in that. David is awesome, but I agree he should make more pro-Christianity videos, not just anti-Islam. The goal needs to be convert Muslims to Christianity, not atheism. See, this is what I'm talking about. So it's not just a commentary on whether David Wood is doing it intentionally or not. This is the sentiment that we get from some of these supporters. And I don't like that. And I want to highlight that, ex-Muslims, be careful of this kind of support. And Christians, this is not appreciated and it's not helpful. It's predatory and it's not going to help you achieve your goal. And if this is why you support me because you want to turn people Christian or because this is why you support me, I don't appreciate that. I'd rather you do it for humanitarian reasons or because you want to learn about my thoughts or my opinions as someone from this environment, or if you want to learn more about Islam, though my content isn't specifically, a list of this is what is stuff in Islam. So yeah, I don't like that. Let's see what else. Next one. So you have to be an ex-Muslim to talk about cult of Islam. You should definitely research the cults and see what defines them. This is probably coming from a Christian. I don't want to make that assertion, but it's funny that they're asking me to define a cult. I know that Islam fits the definition of a cult. And I know that Christianity also fits the definition of a cult, but we don't like to talk about that apparently. Oops, how did that get there? I've never disagreed with any of your videos until now, and that's fine. You can disagree. I think you're being quite unfair to David Wood. Blah, blah, blah. Like I said, this is not an assessment of his whole character, of his whole everything. He has been on YouTube for almost a decade. You don't want to give him a chance. He doesn't really push Christianity. And like we just said, like we just saw from some of his supporters, they are pushing Christianity, and he's not against that sentiment, right? He doesn't say don't do that, don't be predatory. He doesn't do any of that. He probably doesn't mind it. Oh yeah, I forgot to address that. Let's see. It's very well put right here. How I like to put it is what has never been demonstrated with evidence can be dismissed without evidence. I don't know if I'm quoting somebody or something. So yeah, that's what I think. And it has the same pitfalls as Islam or some of the same ones. Lindsay says, I don't look my age though, so does that count? You could be any age. Just make sure that your mind is still plastic in that way. Let's see. What's next? Yeah, so moving on. I get it, David's videos about eBay are completely useless to you at the moment, but that doesn't even say anything about him. I don't think he ever implied to be more oppressed than ex-Muslims, and I don't think I said that he said he was more oppressed than ex-Muslims. He simply pointed out the hypocrisy of eBay. I understand that. I'm saying this is how it felt being in that position. Let's see. He made one video against oppression and dehumanization of Muslims. I totally agree that it's inappropriate to push Christianity on someone who's leaving Islam. I don't think David's videos do that. But what Christian Prince does, extremely uncomfortable to watch him. So this is probably true. He made a video about not dehumanizing Muslims. However, given how the sentiment is repetitive in many of these comments that are under his videos, I feel like he needs to do more. And again, this is not me saying he has to. He's free to do whatever he wants, but that's my perception. That's how I'm receiving it, and it makes me feel uneasy. And if he is doing more, it's not effective. And kudos to him for putting in the effort if he is. Um, but as somebody else pointed, he doesn't feel right. He doesn't. This is not a clinical assessment, but based on what I understand from what he said, he doesn't have these feelings of empathy. So I don't expect him to keep repeating this kind of empathetic or like point it out. Maybe he was doing it because just to make sure that he does it, or to make sure that he does it once. But I don't feel that sense of empathy, and I don't feel easy following someone with no sense of empathy when they're replacing it with a religion. Um, like, this is complicated to say because I don't want to condemn someone in his position. It's clear that he was doing his best, or he's doing his best to, I don't understand the underlying psychology here. I'm not saying he's a bad person, but I am justified to feel uneasy when he doesn't mind his followers acting that way, or he wouldn't have the empathy to stop them from acting that way in a more repetitive manner. Okay, so I don't like that I said LMAO here. I was a little frustrated, but let me address this. On a global level, Christians are so much more persecuted than who? And they can hardly practice their religion, let alone promote their religion. And Apostate Aladdin here is a little annoyed that Christian dares to criticize Islam. Not what I was annoyed at. And I am sick of this, as some people put it, Christian persecution complex, because it is present in Islam as well. That's the thing about some cults. This is a defense mechanism almost. When you feel like everyone outside is an enemy or out to get you, you're more likely to bond together. That may be a good thing. That may have been a necessary thing back in the day, but I'm talking about it right now. Christians are not the most or much more persecuted than who? Much more persecuted than who exactly, and hardly practice their religion. I feel like this is a myth. So globally, yes, like this person was saying, they're Egyptian, and they're what's it called, like Coptics are oppressed in Egypt, and I don't doubt that. I've actually, like, I have personal experience with that, as in, like, I've been told that by a Coptic Egyptian. But to say that Christians are the most oppressed, like, to put it as Christians are the victims, the main victims, I don't agree with that. But I wish I didn't give that reaction, and I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, like, laugh at them. Um, let's see. Yeah, so Apostate Aladdin criticizes Muslims, everyone cheers, and I don't like to put it that way, as I criticize Muslims, but sometimes I do mention that there are prevalent sentiments among Muslims that need to be addressed. Apostate Aladdin criticizes Christians and atheists. Everyone flips tables. Go figure. Let's see. I've already addressed this, but it's repeated often. David Wood has really riled you. Do you hate the guy? I don't think any of this is riling up, but I don't know what else to tell you. There's nothing so easy as catching a heart on the rebound. It's cheap to say the least to take advantage of a person's vulnerable situation, something both Muslim and Christian preachers do. I agree. I agree. Let's see. Lindsay says, your narrative sounds like it's encouraging people to shut up. If anything, we need to speak up more. We're in the minority here. I'm disturbed by the number of Westerners blindly converting to Islam. I also don't like that, Westerners converting to Islam. And I keep trying to highlight the stories of people who leave it, because that's not a focus. And I hope that Christians can at least acknowledge that, sure, Christianity, the way that you practice it, the way that it is right now in the West, is not as extremist as Islam is on average. It's not as problematic on average today. And please don't quote me on that and say that I'm pro-Christianity or anything. It's just, you still have to recognize that similar mechanisms exist, and similar mechanisms of preying on converts, or people who, bringing them into Christianity, bringing them into Islam, they also exist. So I hope that Christians recognize that more. And I'm not telling people to shut up, but I'm sharing my point of view about this. Next. I think you missed the whole point about AP and David Wood. What point? You made a very bad assessment because of their style. Okay. Checked enough of David Wood's videos. You see his main thrust of a common humanity, despite different worldviews. This is not coming off based on his most recent videos, and that's my point here. He respects someone's right to be different. I never said that he doesn't. I wonder why that is a problem for you. I never said that that is a problem. Um, let's see. I don't know. They try to make it seem like I have to be on board with Islam is not problematic and Islam is great and there's no person like Islam doesn't cause any harm, just so I can express those opinions. Anyway, um, okay, it is predatory to promote a religion when you just left another religion. Jesus, dude. Yes, of course, Jesus. How is it predatory if I make a YouTube video telling you why I believe? That's not what I mean. Um, that's not at all what I mean. Come on. And you're tiptoeing too much and being too nice. I don't think people realize, I've said this already, I don't care who I piss off, and not in a sense that I want to piss people off. And at the same time, I'm not tiptoeing. I'm giving you my complete thoughts. And it baffles me that people don't have opposing thoughts in their minds like I do. You it should be healthier. Maybe I'm overthinking, but I always have opposing sides because I don't want to. It doesn't mean that I'm in the middle. It doesn't mean that I'm, somewhere between Islam and Christianity, pro or con. It means that I recognize the harms and the like. I recognize or I try to recognize as much of it as I can. So if that seems like tiptoeing, it's not tiptoeing. It's trying to be as fair as possible and trying to consider all the factors for myself, and especially if I have a responsibility to not not influence people the wrong way in a position of influence. You know what I mean? So if it seems like tiptoeing, it's not tiptoeing. Um, if that's what you call tiptoeing, then it's not a bad thing. I don't know. Um, okay, this is an interesting comment. I'll try to rush through some of them because I don't want to keep you for too long. And it's not that I'm going to leave right now, but I have to leave in about an hour or so. Would you feel sad or happy if someone who converts to Christianity or Islam after a good informed consent? So it's not necessarily, I don't know if I would say I feel happy. And I would be suspicious that they've went through all of the details. Because most often in these conversions, they don't go over details. Like we've seen this joked about by Muslims. Like there's a joke by this preacher who, again, is it doesn't mean that they're all like this, but this preacher was saying a story, a probably made up story, or maybe not, that someone had a problem with alcoholism. And then what the Muslim solution was, convert him to Islam. They said, this will have the solution to your problem. And the guy converted. And then the Muslim said, well, now you can't drink, and if you leave Islam, you'll be executed. And they'd laugh about that. I don't know if that situation really happened or not, but point is, there's lack of like informed consent. I don't know if that's ever done to the fullest extent, the extent that it deserves. Just like how there's a lot of white converts, and I say white converts because that's the experience that I've seen online, like in North America, for example, who join Islam or Christianity, and then they realize that the interpretations that or the watered down answers that they got about, yeah, like homosexuality is not is God doesn't hate gays and so on, they realize that that's not really, for the most part, not really defensible, and usually they have to lean towards the other interpretation, and it makes them feel uncomfortable, and sometimes it pushes them to have bad opinions because they feel like they have to at this point. So I think in many cases there isn't enough informed consent, there isn't enough information before somebody converts. In Islam, for example, all you need to say is the shahada. I mean, you need to understand what it means and you need to somewhat believe it, but you don't need to know this about what God moral Muhammad did, what Muhammad did that I more talking about Christians. I'm talking about this experience. Now I'm talking about this experience about Christians. I was talking about David Wood, and an apostate prophet. Huh? Um, oh, is everybody I hope that this works. Okay, it's usually Allah working against me, but I think this time it is Jesus working against me. It's the whole team, the Holy Trinity. So I think I'm good now. Yeah, there's a cat back here. Um, so yeah, this person is saying I'm brown. I talk about Christians. um, difference between a religion and a cult. The line is thinner than you think. Cults stop you from leaving and have no freedom. That's not the definition of the of a cult. Learn about Christianity, have the total freedom. Again, not the definition of a cult. Let's see. Lindsay's saying, I don't understand the need to be fair to a religion and its followers who are killing people every day in the name of their God. See, that's the generalization here that I have a problem with. So I'm not being fair to Islam because Islam is not an entity. I'm being fair about my assessment of all of this and the effect that Islam has today. I complain about the viciousness that Muslims have, or a majority of Muslims have, towards apostates, for example, or towards certain groups. And that is something that I talk about, right? Being fair here is still important. It doesn't mean being soft. It means being factual, or as much factual as I think I can be. And uh, and you're saying the followers who are killing people every day, are all the followers of Islam killing people every day? Now it's a whole other discussion. If you want to say if Muslims followed Islam to the letter, then there would be a lot more problems and a lot more violence. That's a whole other discussion. And I'm not going to comment on that here. Like, me mentioning it is not taking a side on that, because I feel like there needs to be more said before I can put out a statement like that. But you making this like very blanket, religion and its followers killing people every day, that's not how it works. So nuance is important and being fair is important, and you can still be critical while being fair. Fair doesn't mean soft, right? It doesn't mean not being factual. If anything, it means being more factual. Let's see. Can't get to a long comment in totality. Let's see. What is it? Anyway, I appreciate this comment by Baboosh Cat. And see, this is an example of someone who disagrees with me. And again, they don't have to put me down and belittle me and say that I talk like a Muslim. Um, let's see. Okay. So they're talking about it's a game of numbers. So about the point of doubting apostatizing Muslims coming across Christian anti-Islam outlets, it's more about numbers. There are more vocal Christians that have sizable platforms. It's bound to happen. Points are valid, then they're going to stick, even though it doesn't feel good to the listener. And I've acknowledged that. I don't know if I've acknowledged it explicitly enough, so thank you for bringing it to my attention. But I've said I understand. No, I said I understand that he brought it to a wider audience, and that does cause more people to apostatize. But my goal, and again, highlighting part of that video is highlighting how our goals and motives and outcomes are different. My goal isn't to make as big of a number of ex-Muslims as there can be, right? Because I feel like it needs to be more careful than that. And it's not my brand. Other people might be doing it, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But my goal, for example, is addressing it in a way that those people who are in between, who are ex-Muslims, for example, so they feel comfortable with this. They get that sense of um, safety. That's one of the reasons, and for me to express my thoughts about it. So him creating more ex-Muslims doesn't negate that my approach is different, and that, and again, that wasn't something that I was saying my approach is better in every way. it doesn't negate how people like myself have felt about his approach and how it affected them negatively. So it's offering them another option and highlighting to outsiders that this is not the only option. So don't judge us all based on David Wood, right? If that makes sense. So Hawiya is saying, I'm glad you're addressing these generalized comments, Apostle Laden. That's not an echo chamber in here. I hope it's never an echo chamber in here. And that's why I never really censor comments unless someone is being a troll, a repetitive troll. I don't mind people disagreeing with me. Thank you for offering, Soleil Apostate. Guess we can talk about that later, perhaps. Okay, next comment. You alone said it was an origami video. Let's see. By the way, this critic video alone of two people who have around 300,000 and 700,000 subscribers are for getting more viewers, right? No, and to be honest, I should have expected that it was going to be this much of like of a traffic boost. And here's the thing. No, that's not my purpose, because why would I want that kind of audience that I've received? Not to say that all of Apostate Prophet's audience or all of David Wood's audience is bad, or they're the kind of trollish audience that I've been highlighting, but I am nervous about inviting so many people without it being a slower trickle in people who a stream of people who recognize why I'm doing what I'm doing. So to invite a mass group of people and be like, hey, everybody, join my channel. Look, I make, I hate Islam, that kind of stuff. It doesn't benefit my channel in any way. It doesn't, it doesn't help me achieve what I want to achieve. It's not about numbers for me. So no, and it's not that I wouldn't have made the video knowing this kind of traffic that I was going to get. Perhaps I would have made it a little longer to add more of what I'm saying here, but a lot of what I'm saying here has to do with the reaction. So I think it's just, it's it was predestined to happen that way. It's just fate. So and I keep seeing this accusation, usually by fans of David Wood, maybe Apostle Prophet as well. I don't know. They're saying once you see how the algorithm works, you'll change your approach. As in, I'll just keep quoting them more. I'll keep trying to get their viewers or something. You're very young and very new to this, so with time you'll understand. Thank you for old splaining to me how my approach as an ex-Muslim, creating an ex-Muslim channel, is wrong based on your opinion, dear older, probably not ex-Muslim person. Okay, next comment, but I will pass by Lindsay's comment. You're generalizing by sticking to the argument that not all followers kill people. That's passive and lazy, but it's a common practice within this population. Still not nuanced enough. And no, it's not lazy. I mean, how could you, if you watch my content, how can you watch my content and think that I'm being too soft? If anything, I got the opposite accusation. And it's a thin line to walk. And I care about being fair and what is it, impartial or partial? I keep confusing those words. So if I use it wrong, please correct me. Impartial, I guess. Yeah. So I more than a lot of people, sometimes I dwell on highlighting these negatives. Like every time someone is lynched because of some stupid accusation of blasphemy or actual blasphemy, I highlight that, and it brings me down, and it brings down my audience, and I feel bad, and I feel like, am I harming anyone by highlighting this, even though I shouldn't feel that way? Am I depressing people? Or should I be focusing on the positives? So all of this goes through my mind. So no, I'm not doing this to be lazy. And I've explained more than once what it is that I mean by this. So in your statement, in your comment, I can't scroll back and look at it, but it was a lot more nuance. Lacked nuance than even this. So yeah, that's what I think about that. All right. So funny how at first I didn't know if this was from a Muslim or Christian, but given that video, of course, it's from a Christian. So what? You're an ex-Muslim. Do you think that makes you special? I'm sorry to tell you that you still, okay, there we go. You're still carrying Muslim supremacist attitude with you. Again, this tying anything negative to Muslimness or Islam, I don't like that. And I never claimed that I was special, but the kind of person that I'm trying to not necessarily even intentionally trying to represent. I am representing myself, and a lot of people see themselves in that. So in a sense, if they don't see it in some other people, then yeah, I am a little special that way. Just like other content creators are special because special to the people that they echo their thoughts. You know what I mean? So it's not that I'm special among everybody. To somebody, I must be unique to the point that they would prefer me, or they think that I'm more aligned with their values and so on. So I don't know if they keep projecting this on me. Do you think that makes you feel special? Um, Amo says, thank you for the super chat. Says, age is just a number. Knowledge and experience is important. Keep exposing radicals. Maybe Muslims, Christians, Jews, Hindus smash the radicals. I agree. Yeah, age doesn't mean superiority or wisdom or something like that. And I'm glad that I'm able to. I like to highlight that just because you support me, or like I don't have this mentality of the enemy of my enemy is my friend or something like that. I still want you to understand where I'm coming from, and you can disagree, but know where I stand on this. And a lot of people, especially in today's chat and the previous video, seem to think that I need to be on board with them, or they're angry that I don't agree with them. And I hate to pull rank, but I am the person here who gets to express how they feel as an ex-Muslim. You are valid in how you feel about my assessment here, but you need to sit down because this conversation is not about you. You know what I mean? Um, if anything, it was just about David Wood, and now it's turning into a commentary about the commenters stemming from a certain mentality. So now it's more about you, but all of these comments came when no Christians were really mentioned. I don't think I was talking about his audience at all. Um, anyway, first of all, thank you for your content. Oh, you're welcome. And the insight you bring, especially being native Arabic speaker. A lot of us ex-Muslims are somewhat versed, and as much as we were able to learn when we were Muslim, but it seems as though being native Arab is kind of brings the whole criticism of Islam game up to another level. People can start taking Islamic criticism more seriously. So I don't want to take too much credit for this, to be honest. Like I appreciate the comment, but I want to remind people, I don't say that I'm an authority because I speak Arabic. People keep repeating that, and then others take me down for it. Um, I am able to access the primary sources more easier than someone who has to read an English translation of an Arabic exegesis. You know what I mean? I can read the Arabic exegesis, and there are words I wouldn't understand because a lot of it is not just Fusha, but like older Arabic from the dialect of the specific people in the Quran as well, like the dialect of the Qurayshi dialect. I understand there are still barriers. I'm not an expert, but there are a lot of mutations that are missed by a native English speaker, and it's not their fault unless they do a lot of digging and a bunch of different translations. And even then, like words are not one to one. But in Arabic, it's a closer resemblance. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say about that. With all due respect, I disagree with you on certain points. You have a slight bias and level of hate towards white people. I hope I justified enough or explained enough what I meant by that. And I'm sorry that I wasn't clear enough that some people misconstrued this or misunderstood this. Let's see. No, and it's not because when ex-Muslims leave Islam, they suddenly become very liberal. I don't think that's true. Entails constantly talking about colonialism, white privilege, etc. I don't talk about these things. Let's see. And I do understand, if anything, I'm a critic sometimes about how the well-meaning, I don't want to tie it to a race, but the well-meaning woke leftists, as they're called in North America at least, they want to shield what they perceive to be a minority like Muslims. So they're very sensitive to any criticism of the religion at all because they worry about what negative impacts it may have on, on Muslims. I disagree with that, and I talk about that sometimes. So no, it's not my view that like I understand I can't just adopt a completely new whole ideology and be like, now I'm whatever, a woke person, however you want to put it. Let's see. No, and I do notice that Arabs are, in historically Muslims as well, furthered the slave trade, and Islam legitimized it, even though People claim that it was meant to reduce it and so on. That's a whole other topic, but the reality is it was continued. Um, no, and this isn't about an anti-white narrative. And I'm sorry for there were a few or at least two or something, ex-white converts, racially abused by Muslims or even as a fellow Muslim. This is not me putting down your experience or saying that white people don't go through hardships or anything. That was simply a commentary about David Wood and my perception of him as this archetype of a white man here to profit off of Islam and how it affected me in that moment. That's what I'm saying. Um, and here's this sentiment. It wasn't just me who feels that way. And I could be wrong. Those people could be wrong, but it's indicative of something if it keeps being repeated that we feel like there's a lot of white knighting going on. Um, and you see how quickly they turn on us and how quickly they turn to racial or cultural or whatever derogatory terms the moment that they see that this particular ex-Muslim isn't all praising their guy or their religion. You see that switch. So it doesn't mean that all of our supporters or people who sympathize with us or whatever category or all Christians are like that, but it is a problem that we notice. And if we do notice it, then it's valid to some extent. Are we imagining this? I mean, I thought I was being unfair till I kept seeing people are repeating it. You see how people are like, "Oh, you're still Muslim underneath," or "What do you expect from an Abdul?" or something. It is there. Um, let's see. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. You're trying to build your channel by grabbing onto David Wood and AP's coattail. Pathetic. Like I explained earlier, I wouldn't want to get, a bulk of my traffic that way because that would change what I'm trying to do. And I don't want to see my comments filled with, uh, for example, David Wood's comments about Abduls and things like that. So, yeah. You lost me at white privilege. There's no white privilege. Depends on the context, but yeah, there is. What do you think you are? Purple? I love it when people try to play that technicality card. Yeah, Arabs are technically Caucasian or whatever. You understand exactly what I mean. Like, anyway, I'm not going to keep repeating myself. Let's see. Yeah, I already talked about this. The Enlightenment era began by using uprising against the Christian church and Christianity in general. Had Christians kept ruling the West and had they been the West would have resembled the places under Sharia. I talked about this before. Some people have, they give examples of like, oh, what if, isn't it better if all Muslims suddenly adopted Christianity? Wouldn't that be a better world? And I would say, no, that's a false equivalence because how did Christianity get to this point? So you're posing a hypothetical that is completely different to anything that could ever happen. Like if Christianity had taken a foothold instead of Islam, who knows what that region might have been like given other factors as well. Who knows what could have happened if Christianity didn't go through this reformation and so on. So I don't like that equivalence. So yeah, that commenter agrees on that part. Thank you, Zagros, for the super chat. Says, on behalf of all the trolls populating the chat today, please accept this humbling jizya. Oh, Aladdin, and spare our necks. Your necks are spared. They will never be not spared. And I see not everyone in the comments is a troll. There's a lot of people who are upset and we don't see eye to eye. And they may even have a point that I'm not seeing. I'm not saying that I'm completely right about this, but I will tell you what I think, and I'm open to being wrong. So a lot of these people, they're not doing it to troll or, I'm not seeing too many repetitive copy pasted, Jesus is king kind of thing. I understand where they're coming from. So I still don't dislike them. And that's the thing about me. A lot of these commenters, I don't hate them. Aladdin, I'm a Christian. You don't have to convert here anyway, but you as an ex-Muslim don't have the monopoly. Never claimed it. You stick to yours, he and AP to his. Again, never claimed they should shut up. I get a distinct feeling it's your dislike of Christians. Where is that coming from? That comes through in this clip more than anything else, unless, yes, I love your post. So again, like I said before, no, it's not that I dislike Christians, and I feel like people are projecting insecurities on me that way. And the persecution complex we were talking about earlier, and that is common in a lot of religions, it's shining through again. That, like, we've all heard of the very famous, war against Christianity in the U.S. when that wasn't really the case. That's the kind of thing that I mean. I'm not talking about actual um, people being actually oppressed, like Christians being oppressed in other countries. I think Christians in secular countries, I don't know how often their rights are actually overstepped. I don't know if that happens at all, but I'm not going to say it never happens. But it's not really what they make it seem to be. They're kind of taking away the voices of people who actually are being persecuted in other countries. So uh, here, like, claiming that I dislike Christians is one of those, like, yeah, like you're really drumming up something that's not there. Um, yeah, and that's something to bring to mind here. So there's issues with Christians being persecuted in places where they're the minority. However, um, Christianity is a majority in Africa, and there's still things such as witch burnings and murder of gay people. So we don't have to go that far to imagine a Christian modern Middle East. Yeah, and Christianity is just as capable of this kind of harm. Any dogma is just as capable of this kind of harm. When you convince people that God is telling you specific things, and those specific things include, for example, being gay is bad, and it displeases God, and things like that, it's not that much of a stretch that people who are less educated or because of other external factors will turn to things that might not even be specifically prescribed by the religion to do, like, you know, burning, whatever. Um, but it is kind of almost inevitable based on a bunch of these factors. So to claim that Christianity is free of all that is not fair. Let's see. Yeah, again, talking about the privilege of David Wood, like I said, the fact that he got to the point of being able to put out origami and that he has his face out there compared to someone like myself shows that there's privilege in um, certain aspects, right? I'm not saying he's a privileged person in general, but that is a privilege that he has the protection to be able to call the cops and say, hey, protect me because of this. And there's other commentary to be made about the complacency of a lot of people in the West to these kinds of threats. And that's a whole other comment. But he does have privilege over me in that in that sense. I don't know what to say. So let's see. Okay. Next comment. As a cultural orthodox from Ukraine, I second you in your distrust and dislike of David Wood. Dislike is a loaded word, but I can't say that I like him based on what I know, and I don't have to. I agree with you that it is extremely nefarious to try to hunt for apostates in order to fill the ranks of your religion, which some people claim that he doesn't do that. Let's see. With no regard to the well-being or mental emotional stability of these new recruits, I see those sentiments in the comments that are enabled by, content creators like that. Has nothing to do with David Wood, but I also think it should be greatly discouraged to try and sell any type of religion, especially Abrahamic ones, to people under 20 years of age. That's a whole other controversial topic. Religion's views on women, and okay. This is a good point. Okay, let me address that. So someone's saying, what, you can call the cops as well. Do you not live in the West? So I don't disclose where I live, but to put it, let me phrase it in a way that doesn't say too much personal information about me. It's not that simple from someone from my background. Like I said, there's a lot more community policing involved. There's a lot more that goes deeper than just the legal protections. I keep hearing stories, like I'm not talking just about myself. I keep hearing stories repeated again and again about how someone is in the West, they can't even go to a shelter to get away from their family. Sometimes the law even doesn't really side with them, or the people are sympathetic to religious freedom, as they call it. For example, I made a video about this guy who's he does ruqyas, which are exorcisms, basically Islamic exorcisms in Toronto, Canada, and he would do them on TikTok live stream. I made a video about that. Nobody seems to care to the point of actually taking action. Somebody called the cops and they were told it seems consensual. They didn't even investigate. They said there is no indication that this person who may be under 18, who was being exercised, this woman or girl, there's no indication that it's not consensual. Therefore, we can't really do anything. And that's it. They don't investigate the guy. They don't do anything. So even in the West, there's this sensitivity around religious freedom, or because of this community, right? That's around this person. No one's going to intervene. So me being in the West potentially is not the same as if David Wood, for example, was threatened, or if someone from that background complained about an exorcism in an area that wasn't Christian dominated. There are other factors involved here, but complained about something so horrific being live streams, the outrage that would cause, how the authorities would actually mobilize to do something. But in this case, they didn't. So there is a disadvantage there, even if the legal protection should be on your side. And I hear a lot of these unfortunate stories, unfortunately. Let's see. And thank you for this comment. I don't know if I have time to get into that, but what was the point of this comment, or what did I want to highlight? So some people claim that David Wood only makes nice with ex-Muslims to convert them. No comment on that. Let's see. Yeah, so this is interesting. I like David Wood and agree with most of his critiques of Islam, except when it's like Quran is wrong because it contradicts the Bible. I don't know if that is factual, if he actually uses that logic. But let me point something out. Wait, let me highlight this. Friendly Muslim says, I can confirm Apostate Alauddin has handed in his Muslim membership card, no longer receives 10% discount on Fridays. People need to chill with the Arab Muslim insults. Anyway, Lindsay, you still don't seem to understand that I do both. I point out the systematic problems in Muslim communities while also not just being as rash about it as you seem to want me to be, or as people would expect me to be, not you personally. What was I going to say? I got derailed. Damn it, I forgot. This is why I shouldn't be doing multiple things at the same time. Yeah, so before I forget, so I did look at his testimonial. I still want to get to some comments before I finish. We still have some time, but I watched his video about that testimonial or testimony or whatever. It's, first of all, very impressive that he did it all in one take, and he seems like a confident person, a charismatic person, and it makes me like, part of me is like, damn, he must be intelligent, or there's something there, like there's a skill there. So I acknowledge that. To be able to memorize all that and time it right and everything, it's great. And he has a very sad story, and I empathize with him, and I don't see him as a monster for his actions, knowing that it's medical, right? It's not in his control that he's a psychopath, for example. But he said a few things that that made me, yeah, somebody's pointing this out, and I have to say I'm guilty of that. A lot of psychopaths have a charm and skill. I'm guilty of having this air of carefulness, because I've heard psychopaths even like openly, candidly say, yeah, you shouldn't trust me because I will manipulate you. So I have a little bit of hesitation there, but I'm presuming good intentions somehow. Let's see. Before I get to that, am I going back to Twitter? I activate it every now and then, but apparently there's this rumor that I am running from Twitter. No, it's just that sometimes I'm an impulsive person, and I don't want to give such a huge group of people who are very antagonistic towards me unfettered access to my brain. Be it because I tweeted something, or I couldn't stop myself before tweeting something, just a random thought, not necessarily something antagonistic, or because I feel the need to react to hundreds of Muslims quote tweeting me and insulting me and calling me gay slurs, making up rumors about me and animals. It's a lawless land, and there's no shame, and nobody calls anybody out, because standing up for an apostate is, you're basically an apostate. So no, that's why I stay away from that toxic place. But I think I am more productive in this space, and I think it is more productive to put my thoughts together in a video or stream than to just get involved in this petty squabble. Um, anyway, so back to his testimony. So he said something about how um, I don't want to use the T word, but an extremist who, does a violent act believes sincerely what he believes, something to that effect, that, he truly believes that. And then he goes to talk about how people believe that they saw Jesus being resurrected and so on. And this is me quoting him pretty much word for word. If anyone has God's approval, it's the guy who rose from the dead. So he was basing a lot of his faith on how could so many people lie or not actually see Jesus rising from the dead. So it must be true. Therefore, Christianity must be true. And if I'm going to follow anybody, who else but this guy, right? Like, where else am I going to get my morality from? But he missed the point here where he said, obviously, a terrorist believes, I said the T word, obviously, an extremist believes what they believe. So obviously, a Christian believes what they believe. He doesn't see the double standard there. He doesn't see that it's your belief itself isn't proof of anything. Is that proof that the extremist, his religion is true just because he believes it so intently? And he is basing his whole belief on this historical uh, recollection that the guy rose from the dead. And I'm not going to talk about it because I'm not qualified to dig into it and pick it apart. But I'm pretty sure a bunch of people already have. I find it bizarre that that would be the basis for a religion or belief in a religion, because let me tell you how. Let's say it is factual. Are you saying that since, that time up until now, that it was easy for anybody to verify that that was factual, right? Or was everything compiled? Let's say it is presumably today, you can actually factually look it up and it's 100% airtight. Jesus did rise from the dead, which I disagree with. But let's say that was true. How accessible was that information to so many people? So if that's the foundation of belief, right? If that's the proof for Christianity, God let so many people die because they didn't have access to that proof, die a non-Christian. Because I'm the kind of person who would want proof. And even if that proof were convincing, had I been born 200 years ago, I would not have access to that proof. Even 50 years ago, even 100 years ago. So that strike me as bizarre because he seems like a very intelligent person, but he had this huge blind spot right there. It's cognitive dissonance. And it reminded me that I probably have cognitive dissonance in many ways. So it's good to be aware of your own biases and cognitive dissonance. So if somebody points something out to me, I try to reassess. And yeah, so what else? And he was talking about how, so he went from violence as a psychopath to finding clarity, as he put it. Everything made sense. I hope this doesn't sound insensitive, but what about all the psychopaths who found clarity in another religion or in another mindset that's less peaceful? Just because it worked for someone or if it made sense, clarity in the mind of a psychopath is not proof. And this is not a point against him. It's just that I saw a lot of his comments being like, oh, this is like, it's obviously confirmation that Jesus is real and he was able to reach the mind of a psychopath. But is it, though? What about all the people who found this clarity elsewhere or found clarity in something harmful? How is that confirmation of its truthfulness? I found that to be bizarre. And I also noted that the comments were filled with repetitive praises and just the same format of comments as Muslims have under their videos. And I found that to be interesting, that people don't see that from the outside and they don't see the similarity. Anyway, let's get back to the comments. The fallacies of this apostate Aladdin. He says he doesn't even follow what David Wood works and doesn't preach reasons to follow Christianity. Well, if you did follow David Wood, you would know he had an entire series on Sirah. The funny thing is, we've got commenters saying he doesn't preach Christianity and commenters saying he does. So that's interesting. Giving you reasons why instead of being apostates, you could be a better man's in a book called Jesus in the Bible. See, this is what I mean. So is it predatory? Is it not? We've already talked about that. Maybe if you did follow his work, you would know he does. YouTube David Wood, why I'm not an atheist. Um, I, I mean, that that testimony explained why he's not an atheist, and I don't think that would convince me. And I just talked about why. This is funny. Apostate Ala-ad-Din is spreading fitna among critics of Islam. You should sort out these things privately for the sake of Allah. This is funny because this is the mentality that a lot of Muslims carry, unfortunately, or Muslim preachers and everyday Muslims, that you have to talk about the negatives privately, not just because of the PR image of Islam, which is a factor, I think. Realistically, we're human and we do consider things like that. But because there's a religious component to it, that you shouldn't advertise the mistakes or what's the word for it? The scandals even of people. So, for example, when people were criticizing Ali Dawah for his amazing performance, other Muslims were saying you shouldn't be saying this publicly. We should have a united front. You should advise him privately. So the commenter is making a joke about that. Let's see. I watched AP and DW's Ali Dawah debate review, not knowing who DW was, and I thought he was an atheist. Yeah, think again. So yeah, spreading fitna. To comment on that really quickly, we're not a united front. We never will be a united front. There are alliances between any of us, or not necessarily even like airtight alliances. Friendliness. I am friendly with a lot of ex-Muslims. I mean, I could even call myself an ally. I am an ally with for example, friendly ex-Muslim or infidel noodle, because there's a lot that we agree on, and I still am able to criticize them. And in a sense, I am an ally of Apostate Prophet as well, and I'm still able to criticize him. And you could see that he receives it pretty fine. And part of it is not even necessarily criticism against him, meaning you need to change, but more like, this is what I thought as, as a fresh ex-Muslim, or this is a perspective that differs from his. So yeah, we don't care about this kind of unity looking thing, because at the end of the day, we're all going our separate ways as ex-Muslims, and I'm helping facilitate that. But we do have communities when we need them, and I'm trying to also, present that as an option. This again is the underlying kind of bigotry, that anything bad is Islam related. You're a Muslim deep inside, all that kind of stuff. Some people leave Islam, but Islam doesn't leave them alone. And again, it's funny because Muslims use the same kind of comment in a very different way, but also derogatory against me. By the way, unsubscribe this channel. You know what? Goodbye. Take care of yourself. So they're saying there is Islam in me because of my video about David Wood and Apostate Prophet. You see, it's just this blanket hatred of anything as Islam, and any Muslim as, part of that paradigm. Are you doing a confession here? Why do you have to go to that level to do such a confession? I thought you could stand on your own feet, irrespective of what others said, written, or thought about you. Yeah, so that video wasn't a defensive video about, hey guys, I'm not those people. But for the first time after a year plus of, being Ala-ad-Din, I'm saying something. It was 12 minutes, and a lot of them were jokes. That's all it was. It looks like an apology from an immature child. I would disagree. This is the most childish I ever heard on the YouTube. The YouTube. You know what? Just drop the just YouTube, just Facebook. Sorry to say that, sadly. It's okay. I'm not sorry. You're still very naive. Do more research on them before you comment and make a video on them. Grow up. Says the Muslim. See, I don't like that either. Don't say that. Even if it was accurate, don't say says the Muslim, or how Christian of you, or so on. I don't like that kind of language. But actually, I'm not saying don't say that as an order. I'm saying I wouldn't say that. Let's move on. Okay, I can't get to all the comments. I'm gonna have to speed run through them. Yeah, so some people are saying I've had a similar thought process, but then I changed, or then I see the value in a different way. Hey, yeah, agree to disagree. Or I recognize that point of view as well. Let's see, same thing. Here, I think you are here and you have this platform due to the fact that David Wood opened this possibility for you 20 years ago. If you had started now alone, all the hate would be come to your direction. Should have hit really hard. Um, so I've acknowledged, for example, Apostate Prophet's sacrifice, being crucified for our sins, or for our salvation. I understand that there are people whose public contributions have paved the way for people like myself. However, this is a little bit of this knight in shining armor mentality of, you got to be thankful to David Wood because of him. You don't realize that there's so many critics in the Arab and so-called Muslim world who have sacrificed even more, and they have caused incremental change, but you don't hear of them, or they've been executed, or it's a smaller change that eventually grows to cause me to be where I am today. So don't give too much credit to just one person. And I've already acknowledged their contributions in that sense. So yeah, just don't feel like David Wood saved us, like we can fend for ourselves. I have reached this point without David Wood, not in like as Ala-ad-Din, I mean to the point of getting to disbelief and tackling everything around it. It wasn't with David Wood. I didn't start my doubts because of David Wood. I haven't even heard of any critic of Islam. So we have to keep in mind, credit where credit is due, but we don't have to exaggerate it. Funny telling people what they should and shouldn't do. At no point in that video did I tell people what they shouldn't do or should do. Yeah, same thing. Christianity is not a cult at all. Like I said, you should look at the bite model, and if we have time, we'll look at it. But yeah, it's not based on violence of leaving the group, therefore it's a cult. Let's see. And this is exactly what I was talking about, as I put it, white privilege, or privilege of being, white privilege in the context of where he is, or privilege of being in his environment, not necessarily his whiteness. But colloquially, that's what I thought at the time. It wouldn't be a stretch to say David Wood was only able to reach the early success because he's a Westerner. Exactly. So all of these sacrifices, bigger sacrifices that ex-Muslims or progressive Muslims have made with less recognition, they would have gone further and further with an even, I would say, with an even more of a net positive impact than he would, had they had the same tools, had they had the same privilege. So to say that he doesn't have any privilege in that department is unfair. David and AP are way out of your league. It's quite ironic you don't talk about atheism either, so I can't follow your logic. I mentioned this earlier about how I'm not promoting atheism in that sense. And I never said that, like, I'm in their league, whatever that means. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, some people agree that it is strange for Christians to argue against another religion because there are blind spots, I would say. And they're not always wrong or anything. But yeah, anyhow. Yeah, so there is something that I want to comment on here. And I partially think part of AP's motivation, which is fear of the future or Islam's kind of threat to the Western lifestyle or something of the sort, I do warn that there's complacency by allowing Islam and Muslims too much, not that, allowing them to overstep the boundaries in secular countries and control the narrative, for example, or like just accepting that violence will happen if anyone talks about the Prophet in a certain way. That's not only bigotry of low expectations, but it does cause harm, and it could mean that this complacency will keep creeping up on us. However, I don't focus on that, and I don't know the extent of that being true. It depends on the country. It depends on the location. So it's something that I worry about, but not to the extent that they do. And I don't speak about the truthfulness of it because I'm not informed enough at this point. There's a lot more that I need to be informed on before I can make that assertion. So yeah, just wanted to talk about that. And there's a lot of people giving credit to Christianity for enlightenment and things like that. Let me remind you of something. When people say, for example, in the Islamic Golden Age, a lot of the scientists were Muslim, aside from the fact that there's contentions there, a Also, all of the garbage men during that time were Muslim. All of the doctors were Muslim. All of the barbers were Muslim. So, because a lot of people were Christian during a time where there was progress, doesn't mean that it's thanks to Christianity. So, I wanted to point that out. And there's a lot of people who keep crediting Christianity for like as if we owe it to them or Christianity to be thankful for progress. Yeah, I've already talked about this. Let's see. Longer comments I might not be able to get to at the moment. I checked your videos and a bulk of them are about Islam. Would you count it as a valid criticism if someone pointed out that you do not have many videos defending your agnosticism or atheism? So something to point out here. Again, the point is what was not proven using what was not proven does not need to be disproven. What was not proven using evidence does not need to be disproven using evidence. The default position is not knowing or not having this idea that there's a personal God that wants you to worship or else it will torture you. I don't need to defend anything because the other position has not been proven. And the focus isn't to spread atheism, like I said, or agnosticism. I am talking about that process and what I think about Islam because there's not enough discussion about that. So why bring it up about David, especially if you haven't gone through his videos? We've already been through that. Yeah, comparison Christianity, Islam. It's not always useful, but sometimes it is. I just can't get into this right now. And yeah, let's talk about, for example, just a quick example, the Noah's flood or creationism. Some Christians now would say that it's not really, how it actually happened. It's all a story or something like that. But for the longest time, people believed it literally, and a lot of people still do. So how can you critique Islam for the absurdities of it, like a man riding a flying donkey, when you believe that God killed every animal on earth except for a pair of each, somehow logistically impossible, but on a boat, you need to have an outsider's perspective and look at how, if you think something is absurd for absurdity reasons, so is your belief sometimes. So that's something I wanted to comment on. So yeah, first of all, the contribution of David Wood, I recognize that, and I have mentioned it already. Different approach, also recognize that. Yeah, so a lot of the same. Let me see if there's. So this person here is an ex-Catholic. Crazy Pit Mom was saying, David Wood followers are the same type as Yasser Qadhi's. I don't like generalizations, but I'll read her comments. I'm an ex-Catholic Christian and ex-Sunni Muslim. When I applied the same criticism to Christianity as David Wood applies to Islam, I was almost burned alive by his subscribers. I unsubscribed from his channel and I said to myself, never again. I've seen this double standard, like I said, in my comments since before this video. And I hope that everyone is as tolerant to criticism of their religion or mockery or ridicule as they expect it from others. Let's see. Why should you think you're a good judge of the motives of others when you even admit not paying that much attention to their content? I think I've addressed this so many times. It's not a judge of their whole character, but I was talking about what it seems. Commenter says Islam is a cult, and then you respond by saying Christianity is also a cult, but you managed to claim the high ground. I wasn't claiming the high ground, but I wanted to remind them that, you got to be consistent. You sound like the religious people you criticize, so they often project this image of me on my high judgment seat. If I'm complaining about how people are behaving in my comments, that's not me saying I am better than you, stop behaving like that. I'm saying I don't like that they behave like that. Oh yeah, that's the commenter from earlier. Seems like you left Islam, but you're still playing the games they play. Again, repeating that you're behaving extremely Muslim with these comments. Have a good life, you just lost me. That is what I'm pointing out, right? If you support me and you're this kind of person, I don't appreciate it. You're behaving extremely Muslim by asking him to elaborate on when I was being comparing myself and saying I'm better than other people. So is it a Muslim trait to want you to clarify? What a great trait, I suppose. Let's see. I didn't even read that comment at the time, and they kind of corrected, and they saying it's kind of a cultural thing. It's a condition to blah blah blah. Whatever. Anyhow, the comments are getting pretty repetitive, and I think your Jesus statue is triggering. What did I do? David Wood supports ex-Muslims. He shouldn't. You should be more supportive. I don't know about that. Yeah, okay. So I get this sentiment a lot every time I express any opinion. Who cares? Who cares? A lot of people apparently, but you know, do you have to make a video to justify that you are different from them? Already addressed that. I do not give a damn. Clearly, you don't. And this is a tactic that I've seen. I remember Trump supporters were very adamant on doing this. Not all of them, but you know the kind. And I've seen it among Muslims as well. They would write a comment like this, and then they'd be like, "You're triggered. Why are you easily triggered? You're being abrasive and asking me why I'm triggered, and I wasn't even triggered." It's a tactic to get you to be in the wrong here, and I'm fine. Lindsay, we already had some discussions in the comments here. Yeah, so Holy Armor, very interesting commenter who kept repeating things like that. That's the person who said, "Why are you speaking Arabic?" That was interesting. It shows some underlying bias and, dare I say, a little bigotry. Yeah. And okay, this is a good point. Mika says, "I think they've remained unchallenged for so long due to a false sense of solidarity that some ex-Muslims, such as AP, may feel like they're giving, that when they're addressed, they have a knee-jerk reaction to it because of an entitlement now feel of how they feel the ex-Muslim communities." So to elaborate on that, I feel like, and this is me saying I feel like, not that it's factual, a lot of these like fans of whatever channel, they have this idea of an ex-Muslim in their mind, this, you know, one of the good ones of the Muslims, or just you know, a poor soul that is now closer to seeing our way of life or something like that. And the moment that they hear that one of us is not on board, as you can see, lots of hateful people in the comments, and it goes to highlight how humans are humans, and just like Muslims have these negative reactions, so do Christians. Yeah. See, again, I've tried to explain this as much as well as I could, Lindsay, but she's saying it seems like you still have loyalty to your former religion, it seems. No, let me rephrase that to make it more accurate. It seems like my closeness to Muslims by virtue of being born with them, among them, and living among them, helps me humanize them more, even though I disagree with a lot of prevalent mentalities that they hold and the harm that they cause us. I highlight that all the time. But it seems like when you're far removed from that, you are more likely to be abrasive without thinking of the consequences. You're less likely to see it from the insider's point of view. You're not you specifically, Lindsay, but somebody like David Wood or somebody else, not having that insider's perspective doesn't factor in how the insider might be harmed by what they think is good for us ex-Muslims. Not that that's why David Wood is doing it, but that's what I'm trying to convey here. So if you see it as loyalty to my former religion, no, I see it as nuance in order to be fair, and so that it doesn't harm people like myself. So yeah. Without those guys' perceptions, no one would have noticed your channel. That's again this savior complex that I owe it to them. And the commenter isn't even them, right? The commenter is just taking credit for it somehow. No, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that without them, I appreciate, for example, Apostate Prophet had me on his channel, and yeah, of course, I got some views from that. It's not as much as you think. It didn't make my channel, but it did help me, and I do appreciate that. And a lot of people did find me through Apostate Prophet. However, before that, Friendly Ex-Muslim is the first person who had helped me. And to give them credit, again, for not them, to give David Wood credit for something, so much credit for something that he was able to achieve because of his privilege, aside from all his work, is unfair. So no, it's not that I wouldn't have been here, wouldn't have been noticed without David Wood. Have never even interacted with him. Um, Apostate Prophet says, I suffer so you can live. And I said, start selling crucifix merch and I will wear it. Hassan Udwan says he's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy. He has a reputation for that. And a couple more comments before I'm done. Pasad Aladdin does know Arabic, but he seems to me to be saying the different ways AP and David Wood go about Islam is inferior to his way of criticizing Islam, though he doesn't explicitly say it, but it's obvious. Again, the projection. So I don't say it, but it's obvious somehow. I've never implied that my way of going about things because I speak Arabic is better than AP. I've never said that or even implied it. And I recognize how much effort it takes for someone who doesn't speak Arabic to do extra digging more than I would to find the facts. And if anything, people keep pointing out this me speaking Arabic as a positive, and I tell them not to highlight it too much because I don't want people to get the wrong idea. So no, I've never said something like that. I've never implied that my way is superior to AP's way or something because I speak Arabic. I hope people recognize that. Anyway, I think that's it for today. And I wanted to repeat that last point that I was making. So people say, or some people think that I'm being too soft, for example, when on the other side, Muslims say that I'm being too harsh and not nuanced enough. And I can't please everybody, and I'm not doing this to please anybody, but I want to clarify my thought process and how I arrive at my method, I suppose, or my opinion that I will share. Um, I I recognize things from as many perspectives as I can, not because I'm doing it systematically for some reason or another. It's just how I think, how I try to think, because I think that's how fairness is. And if it seems like I'm too soft, maybe because you're used to a tone that is too harsh or not nuanced enough. And it's not like I have all the nuance in the world. It's not like I'm always right. I never assert this kind of confidence that I am right and this other person is wrong. And I feel like it's lacking from a lot of discourse like this, not because of ex-Muslim content creators not being sensitive enough. It's just that there's not as much space to take things slow and consider the other point of view without giving them power, right? Because it's hard for me to keep putting disclaimers about how, for example, not all Muslims, when they turn around and attack me. And the more they do it, the less space I'm going to have to do that. So I've been blessed and privileged with honestly not the worst progression at all, especially compared to like someone like Infidel Noodle, for example. She went through so much vitriol from Muslims that it was part of my story of becoming ala ad-Din and a very interesting series of events without even meeting her. And that kind of hate, I didn't receive it as much. She received it because she's a woman, and you know how religions usually feel about women. So point of that is I am blessed to have the space and the privilege in a sense. See, like I accept that I do have privilege to be able. Oh, sorry, I still kept that comment pinned. That wasn't my intention. To to be able to take it slower, to be able to give a platform to Muslims to express why and how they believe, because that way we would understand them better and they'd understand us better. Just before this stream, I was talking on TikTok to a Muslim who wanted to join and tell me, ask me questions. And he said, I've never spoken to an ex-Muslim before. And that's a good thing. It doesn't mean that I'm like placating Islam or Muslims or that I'm tiptoeing around things. I still make the content however I want. And if they're offended by it, that is their right. But some make it through that offense or at least see the point of what I'm doing. And they still want to talk and learn more. And I think that is valuable. And I thank my lucky stars for that and the people who have helped me get to this point and the people who have paved the way for that. So don't give me too much credit, and don't expect me to be harsher or whatever because that's what you want me to do. I'm just being myself. I'm trying to do things the way that I see are right, and I'm open to feedback and yada yada yada. Anyway, thank you for coming today. I hope that this clarification was enough. I don't hate Christians. I don't really have like a hate or like for David Wood, and it's okay to not want to make a definitive statement like that. Um, I expressed today how I felt when I first came across his content and how a lot of Muslims and ex-Muslims feel, and how it's a barrier to getting into his content. And he doesn't need to change his methods for me. I'm just expressing how that differs from what other people expect. And and I hope that the people who aren't comfortable around his content find others, myself or otherwise, who are more closely aligned to them. And I hope that Muslims or other outsiders don't see us as one person, because his voice is loud, 700 plus thousand followers. And when people think critic of Islam, or I'm not like a self-proclaimed critic of Islam, that's not my title. But when people think anyone who speaks about Islam in an unfavorable way, or fair but unfavorable, they don't think of people like myself. They think of the biggest figures. So I hope that we get a little bit more attention towards us, because our part of the story needs to be told, and our goals are different. We're not in it for the same reasons. And that's why I wanted to talk about it. And this all stemmed from a short video, and the reaction to it is how we got here. But this was productive. I'm not upset. I'm not angry. I'm glad things happened the way they did. I suppose there is qada and qadar. There is predestination to everything, right? God has a wisdom in everything. So yeah, thank you, Apostate Underground, for the super chat. Keep doing what you're doing, and I appreciate everyone who's saying it with or without a super chat as well. Yeah, so I hope this was beneficial in some way. I hope it wasn't too clickbaity in an unfair way. I think it did get the attention of the people who need to know these things. So I'm glad that they now know where I stand. So yeah, take care, everybody. And as always, think critically and think for yourself.